Symbols is brought to you by HelloFresh. It's easy to fall into the dinnertime recipe rut. Keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every week. So there's always something delicious to discover with HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com/50sacred and use code 50sacred for 50% off plus free shipping. Go to HelloFresh.com/50sacred and use code 50sacred for 50% off plus free shipping.
Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Fume, a great way to break a bad habit. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com, that's TRYFUM.com, and use the code SACRED at checkout, that's SACRED, to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use the code SACRED to save an additional 10% off your first order today. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 276. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined only today by my son, Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today? You're wearing that shirt is so pink. I've never seen something more pink than that shirt before. Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's like a flamingo pink. Tell me about it.
I've got a Timmy Turner, Fairly Odd Parents outfit going on today.
Oh, very nice.
But I was walking around with my parents. No, my phone alarm's going off. There it is. I got to make sure I get into the room on time for the show.
Yeah, I understand.
So I have like 8 alarms. I have like 8 alarms, like 51, 54, 57, because I'm a psycho.
That's like my ex would wake up to alarms like that, and I had to beg her. I'm like, at some point, I'm like, you have got to stop because you're driving me fucking insane.
Yeah,
oh my God.
It drives people insane. But I was walking around with my parents because I've been taking my parents all over the place. I took him to the San Diego Zoo. I took him to,
nice.
I took him to this place it's called Crazy Burger in San Diego that sells like all these exotic meats. So you could get like alligator burgers and like buffalo burgers
Sweet.
and ostrich burgers. I had an ostrich burger.
What'd you think?
I feel like there's a reason we don't kill and eat ostriches everywhere.
Right.
Because it's fine. It's not bad. It was just like, I was expecting a drastic difference from like the normal meat that I have, but it just kind of tastes a little bit like steak.
Right.
Which is in and of itself alarming for a bird to taste that way.
Like yeah.
But I don't know. It was okay. It was interesting. And so I've been gallivanting all over the place. And my dad commented on this shirt. He was like, because I said, oh yeah, it's a pink shirt. And he goes, no, that's not pink. That's hibiscus.
Wow.
And I'm like, why do you know what that is?
That's impressive.
What is that? It was deeply alarming.
Yeah.
To hear my dad mention.
So they're still there.
Color like that. Yeah, they're still there. They're leaving tomorrow. Night.
Wow. That's a long visit. How do you feel? I mean, are you feeling well established okay. and
yeah. It's good. I got the time in.
Yep.
And I feel good about it.
Right.
Because I don't know, man. Like I've been. This might. I don't know. Maybe this is a little dark. I don't know. But I read somewhere, and I couldn't get it. It's like one of those things where you read and it never leaves your mind. Where it's like, I don't remember the exact numbers or the exact percentage, but it's like by a certain age, you've spent like 95% of the time that you will spend with your parents. You ever read that statistic?
No, that's sad. That's kind of sad.
It's like upsetting. So I was like, I don't like that. So yeah. I'm trying to make an effort to just spend more time with family.
That's good.
Cognizantly trying to.
How old are your parents?
My dad's 73 and my mom is 62.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So
yeah,
my parents are both 73 as well. And I become more cognizant in their 70s because I feel like my dad, I don't know why, but I always just felt this way about my dad. Maybe everyone feels this way about their dad. I just feel like he's kind of immortal. Like he had to go. He's also a big, bulky, strong dude, way healthier than his age would suggest. Really crazy about that stuff. But he had to go and get like just some procedure that's for his heart or whatever, just to check in on things. And for some reason, I just was not worried about it. And then my mom before that went for a heart thing, and I was very worried about it because like I feel like my mom is much more meek and susceptible to age than my dad is in some way. Like I feel like my mom is aging more rapidly than my dad is. So
right.
I don't know. And I'm glad to be around my mom here in Virginia so I can see her, a couple times a month or whatever. When we have,
it's super important.
I agree. So I'm glad you're doing that, and glad you're having a nice time. For me, because I'm reading, as I noted last week, I'm getting through it. It's huge, but the Benjamin Franklin biography by Walter Isaacson, and I'm reminded of the Poor Richard Almanac's entry that he wrote in the 1730s. I guess it would have been guests and fish stink after 3 days, right? So, which is an amazing saying.
That's a good saying.
Yeah. So to me, I'm similarly disposed towards like a long weekend's good for me when someone would come visit. It's like, all right, you get here on a Friday. At the very worst, we're getting you out of here on Monday morning, like first thing. Got to go.
Yeah, no.
Preferably you'd be out on Sunday.
Well, what I like about it is when they get here, they were like, "You make this trip every time you come back. This is a terrible trip." Like the flight from like New York to California. I'm like, yeah, I do it every single time. You know, when I come home 3 to 4 times a year, this is what I do every single time. And they're like, damn, Jesus. I'm hoping I can cash this in sort of where it's like, hey, you've been here. We've spent a lot of time together. Probably not coming for like Christmas or like New Year's. Exactly.
Totally.
Because it's a trek, man.
I know. I was thinking, I was going to ask you, how many times do you earnestly think you've flown from California to New York and back to California? So a round trip. I'm going to say I've earnestly done that 50 times.
Oh,
like something like that since 2003, the first time I did it.
Since 2003. Yeah. I've only been out here for like since 2015. So it's 2023 now. So it's been 8 years. But I think I must have done it at least, 15 times.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Which is a lot.
It's a huge amount. And people really don't understand that they don't do it. It's like, damn, dude, this kind of does suck. I mean, I'm just so used to the cross-continental flight, the 5 or 6 hours, like this was what it's going to be. Or you can get I remember when I came back from Iceland, I was so desperate to get back to California because I was so tired of being in Iceland. So we flew to Logan in Boston, and it took us more than 7 hours to get back to California from there because of the really bad jet stream that day. And I was like, gonna fucking kill myself. It was by far the longest flight I ever took across the country, as if we weren't moving at all. I wish that we could deal more with sonic booms above so that we can just move much faster, but I think it would just fuck everything up. So
yeah, it's a shame.
It is. Because the Concorde, imagine going to London in like 90 minutes or something like that. It's kind of dope. I mean, and if you die, you're going so fast, you're probably just going to immerse yourself into the fucking atmosphere anyway. You're just going to emulsify. Who cares?
I was going to say emulsify. Yeah, I don't know, but like I wish. Part of me just wishes like they had a train, like a really like fast ass train. Because I would do that. I feel like I would be a lot more willing to do that than just sitting captive in a capsule 30,000 feet in the air where you just can't. I don't know, man.
I prefer car, right? You get a little sleeper car, and you just kind of. I've always wanted to be in a sleeper car on a train. That looks so cool.
Yeah, it's like I've never done that ever, and I actually thought that was just a fake thing. Like I remember I saw that in, like Harry Potter, and I was like, oh, that's kind of whimsical. They have like little trains with little rooms in them. Aw, that's cute.
Yeah,
it's so cute. British and whimsical. And I'm like, no, and people are like, no, that's not like a Harry Potter thing. That's real. I was like,
yeah, we just live in America, so we don't have anything except for Amtrak does that. If you're willing to go on Amtrak, but it's frustrating. There's that meme about China and the United States and how they or California and the United States about how they both announced high speed rail at the same time. I think it was in like 2001 or something, and then California hasn't built any of it still. I don't think, except for like some sample track, and China has built like 60,000 miles of it. So
it's a shame. It's because car culture is so huge out here. Like there's a lot of money in making sure that public transit sucks, which is like that really fucking blows. Because it could use a train. You could use a train out here, I think. Like desperately, in fact.
What's so funny about that too is that the United States' per capita carbon footprint is decreasing really, really rapidly. We use less. This is incredible. We emit less carbon now than we did before World War II per capita, which is insane. And we do all that with these cars and with these trucks and all these things and our big planes. Imagine the good we can do to our environment if we adapted these better modes of travel. I was wondering as we talked though, what is Dustin doing right now? And I went and looked at his Twitter account. He is indeed driving to Chicago. Okay, I was wrong. I said Michigan beforehand. Chicago, Illinois. But he says he laments that he has to drive through all of Ohio to get there. And then in Dustin fashion, he said there's only one true Ohio, and it's Ohio gozaimasu, which I think is good morning in Japanese. So stay away from the show for a while.
Yeah. Take a leave of absence.
Yeah. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Oh, man.
Welcome to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. It's just like the old days. Is this the second time in 3 weeks or 4 weeks that it's just been me and you?
Yeah, it's uncharacteristically frequent.
Yeah.
And at least, well, I don't know if you could say it's frequent if it's only 2 times.
2 or 4 is a lot,
it's not a trend.
No,
yet.
It's not. Well,
exactly.
not yet. Not yet. We'll see what other ways Dustin tries to squirrel out of work in the coming weeks and months to come. But in the meantime, it's just you and me, just like the old days. Good to be here with you. Vintage. Hope you're doing well. It sounds like you're doing well. You look great. You sound great. Family's doing great. California, kind of degrading a little bit, but that's 3 or 4 is not bad.
Yeah, California is always degrading,
right?
As well as the rest of everything,
right?
So I don't mind it,
dude. In my area of Virginia, I live in a county called Chesterfield, which is south of Richmond, and I don't know what's going on here because my whole joke is it's just suburbia. It's just suburbia with this road, Hull Street, it's called, and it's just strip malls and big box stores off of her miles. And they're just building. They're knocking all this shit down and just building and building and building. And I'm like, what do you all do here? Because you can't all be doing what I'm doing. I'm just randomly here. Are you all randomly here? Because I don't know what
maybe
anyone does here. There's a big bank in Richmond. The big employer in Central Virginia used to be Philip Morris. And they're still there, but they decreased precipitously in size. So I'm just like, where is all of this coming from? We're a mile away from me, they're doing like a 55 and up community or something. I'm like, where are you coming from? Why do you want to be here? I mean, it's great, dude. It's great here. I love it here, but it's just maybe everyone's realizing that it's great here. But
maybe,
I just don't know what anyone does for a living, I guess is what I'm saying.
Dude,
fucking clue.
It's really it's so funny. There's like a lot of construction in Burbank, and there's like a lot of like new apartments going up. And you look at them, and it's like, oh man, there's a lot of housing here right now. Except it's all like luxury apartments, and I'm like, who the fuck is there's so many luxury apartments here that are empty. I know because I look into them, and there's no one renting them.
Right.
And I know as somebody who was like foisted out of them because like they raised my rent like $800, and on principle, I was like, what the fuck is it? It's a 30% increase. It's insane,
dude. My old building in Santa Monica was probably half Airbnb. You know?
Oh, that is objectively what's happening. I think it's a lot of people who have the means to buy to just keep people in a perpetual state of renting, which is, scary. But I think that's all. I honestly think we're probably like maybe like a few years away from that entire thing kind of really crumbling. It already kind of crumbled in Austin, or it's starting to crumble in Austin, Texas, where like a lot of the Airbnbs are being sold back because they're just like, we can't make any money on this shit.
Yeah, fuck that company. Honestly,
yeah, I hate Airbnb.
I loved it 12 years ago or whatever. When it was like more novel, and especially for huge groups of people. Yeah, like a whole family or something, and just getting a house. It's cool, but the memes about it really did become true. I rented a place in Palm Springs 6 or 7 years ago, like a house, and they had a camera out looking at the pool that you were not allowed to cover.
That's so.
And I'm like, I don't know about part of me. I was with my ex at the time. I'm like, I'm just going to cover it. Like, what are they going to do? They're probably not even anywhere near here.
Did they send a drone over to you?
Yeah. But I didn't. She was like, please don't, because it was on her like account and all that.
Oh,
you don't want to get a bad review.
Yeah,
because I'm like floating around here, like smoking weed, drinking beer, like just dicking around. It's like, why do you need to be looking at me?
It's a tool, man. The thing is, like, it's a tool, and like we are unfortunately, like us as a species, we're just like a species of excess. Like we don't if we're given an inch, we take a mile.
Yeah,
like everywhere.
Sure,
like always, even in like little things, like everybody speeds. Like this, like you have those signs up there. It's like 35 miles an hour, and you're like, that's a nice suggestion, but it really is just that. Like everybody speeds, and so like we just break the rules every single time. So when we have a good idea like Airbnb, it's always like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then we just can't help ourselves. Just like, okay, cool. Now let's buy the entire city and rent out the entire city forever.
Right.
No one will own anything. And
right. No one will have anywhere to live. And
yeah, it's crazy.
Austin will just be a city of tourists.
Yeah, forever.
For 2 to 4 days each.
Yeah, great.
I get like it is full circle. So many things have become full circle. I think even subscription modeling with entertainment.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Has come back where I'm like, oh my, dude, I was trying. The NHL season just started. Mike is a huge hockey fan. I am too. Although I'm kind of more passive these days. I just don't have enough time. I feel like if I only watch the Islanders a little bit, I'm not really an Islanders fan. So I either go all in or I just be like, I'm going to kind of take a pass on this season. But she wanted it. And I usually have NHL TV. In fact, they used to bill me every year and I would watch it, as much as I could. And then they stopped. And you have to go subscribe to ESPN Plus now.
Oh, man.
It's like, so now I have to subscribe to this new thing, this other thing to get this. Fucking Christ.
Everybody's bouncing around. Everybody's like, please come over here now.
Right.
It's kind of funny because realistically, it's not really that big of a deal because I think I liken it to like PC launchers, how people are like, oh man, it's on the Epic Game Store and not Steam. And it's like, it's still on your PC. You don't have to go anywhere. But I get it. It's irritating to hop around from place to place, especially when it's just arbitrary, or at least it feels that way to the consumer. The consumer's not privy to any of this like backdoor information where it's like, oh, it's the reason why we joined ESPN Plus is for this reason.
Right.
It's like, I don't give a shit. Like I have to it's like when HBO Max turned into Max, but you had to download a separate thing.
Yeah, that was so annoying. I put it off for weeks because I was so annoyed by it.
It's a dumb thing. It's like, what, you didn't just update HBO Max to be Max? Also, dumb name change. I just the entire premise of that entire thing was dumb.
Dude, I don't know.
You made the name worse. You made the name worse, and you made people download something else, which undoubtedly millions of people just didn't even bother doing that step when you could have had everybody if you just updated the app. I don't know. I don't know what the hell they're doing over there.
Home box office. That's way too good of a name.
Is that what that means?
It's like that is like an iconic, maybe the most iconic channel ever. Yeah, as far as quality is concerned, because it's like NBC, CBS, Fox, ABC. They're all I know what they did and all of that, but they're all kind of the same. And then you just had HBO.
Yeah, maybe NBC was up there because like they had like the biggest shows like all like forever. But yeah, it's funny you say home box office. This is the first time I even thought about like what HBO stood for.
Yeah, that's way too good of a name. It's fucking. Dude, that's an amazing name. An amazing name.
It's a good abbreviation as well. HBO sounds good.
And just the intro, like, why are you, if you needed anything for someone should come in and be like, why are you messing with your branding? What are you, fucking crazy? Yeah. That's like the last thing you want to do. Though it's confusing that HBO has sports. And I'm like, no, it's not. HBO has had sports for fucking decades. Brian Gumbel and all these dudes on all these various pay channels are all doing sport. I don't understand what the hell anyone's doing. That annoyed. We shouldn't even brought it up. That's a fucking tender spot for me with the HBO thing. Because someone came in and it was like the anti-Don Draper, and they're like, we're going to change the name from the best thing you had to the worst name you could possibly have. We're going to call it Max. No one knows what that means, but we're going to call it that. It's just a name.
Yeah, literally.
And
it's like, oh, cool. I'm going to name it's like, it sounds like a waiter or something. Like, what the hell? What is this? I don't know. It's such a terrible idea.
I understand it's this idea of like trying to make a more circuitous thing between brands. But in my opinion, when you own something like HBO and you buy something, it's like, no, you become HBO. It's like PlayStation buying a brand and then be like, no, you're still this other thing. Oh, Bungie.
Yeah.
All right. I don't even know how we got into this diatribe. I have no idea what we were talking about.
This is what happens.
Yeah.
This is like the old days. This is the vintage formula and what it yields.
Well said. All right. Yeah. Sacred Symbols PlayStation Podcast live each and every week, 3 days early and ad free on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia, where there's like more than 13,000 of you paying for the show every month right now. And we really appreciate that. That's just absolutely amazing. Most of you are at the $5 or up level. Vast majority of you, that gets you early ad free access to every episode of this show, every episode of our Xbox show. We're not on that show, but Defining Duke, Constellation, our conversational podcast, Knockback, our retro and nostalgia podcast, Punching Up, our Nintendo podcast, 2 episodes of Sacred Symbols Plus twice a week, which is our supplement. We do some interviews, we do some mailbags, etc. In fact, Chris, you just recorded a mailbag that will go live the day after this goes live on Patreon, so please look forward to it. Was that fun? I love mailbags. They're fun.
It was cool. It was like my schedule was all over the place though, because I've been working and like showing my parents around. So I recorded it like at like 1 a.m, like last night. So it has this vibe of like kind of bedtime story, like accidentally, just based on like the time of day it was and like where I was and like my energy. I wasn't like tired, but it was like very like easing, You know, I wonder how people are going to react to it because
I'm sure
I'm
they will.
usually, yeah. We had some pretty good questions on there, so it was good.
Cool.
It's been a while since I've done one too.
Were half of the questions as illiterate as they usually are? I mean, let me be honest with you here. When I read some of these comments that come through,
no idea, man.
I fear. You know, people say they cringe all the time with things we say and things. When I think about person X who wrote in this horrible comment that doesn't make any sense, I'm like, please, God, please don't have to email anyone at work. You know, please let this man be a car mechanic or something, you know, because it's borderline illegible. Some of the things I have to do to get these comments usable, it's just right clicking, you know, all the red lines and squiggly lines in Google Docs. It's just me right clicking and just updating everything. Okay, yeah, now it makes sense. Thank you for writing in. So I'm sure you experienced something similar.
It's like running it through like one of those decoder rings.
Right. Or
it's like cereal boxes.
It's like me and my friends used to, during the early Babelfish days, used to think it was funny to translate things into a language and then translate it back into English. That's kind of what what we get sometimes. Dude, that's not everyone though. That's about, I would say, a quarter to a third of people are struggling.
Oh, dude, it's like 90% of people around the Snark Tank. I have to like, because there's no barrier of entry at all. And I think they like the fact, like, they understand that, like, I'm like dyslexic, so they understand. It's almost like they try intentionally to write things in a way that will trip me up on purpose. And so, like, I'm just like, all right, this is part of the show, I guess. It's just you intentionally screwing with my disability. So that's cool. Thanks.
Yeah, very nice. Nice.
Real epic. Yeah.
Speaking of that, have you started your meds or anything like that yet? Is this just like still
dude,
raw dogging? 2023 is the year of the raw dog, the psychological raw dog.
The psychological raw dog. Yeah, I have not. I answered this question on the mailbag too, where it's like somebody's like, hey, somebody's like, oh, I heard you started treatment or whatever. It's like, how's that been? I don't remember when I said this. I think there was a point in time, like early in January, where I said I was supposed to. And then, so a number of things happened where, like, I was prescribed like Adderall in January, but that was, again, while I was training for the fight and while I was trying to gain weight. And I heard somewhere, and I researched this too, that like Adderall was like an appetite suppressant. And I was like, oh shit, I probably shouldn't be doing that. I should probably just like wait until the fight's over. And then when the fight was over, the shortage was still going on. And so I was like, all right, I'll get to this later. But as any of this stuff, like it's such a shame because like what this mental thing is it doesn't mesh well with the process of solving it, if that makes sense. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, I'll get to that later. And then you do a million other things. And before you know it, it's been 3 months and you forgot to check about like the, like how available is it? Yeah, and then by the time you check again, like, there's a new wave of shortages. So it's like, oh, cool.
And you're just becoming increasingly used to dealing with it, you know, which is both good and bad, I guess, you know, but
I'm not even really like, I'm not fiending for it. I've never had it. So like, I've never tried it. I don't know what it does. I don't really have an addictive personality, so I'm not really concerned about it. It's just, I would like to know like how it would affect me and if it would help at all, just so I have an idea of like, oh, here's how I can use it if I were to use it. Or if it just doesn't work, then I'm like, okay, cool. Then that's something I don't have to think about. But what's frustrating is like, it's right now, it's like, it's something that I'm always thinking about but it's never available. So it's like it's this really annoying, consistent, like undercurrent constantly where it's like, man, that might help me, but I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah. And it's Adderall specifically is what you were going to take, right?
Well, that's what I was prescribed. Yeah. There was another one like Vi something. I don't remember what the other one was called. But I don't know. I'll check in again. And like, this shortage has been crazy. It's lasted the entire year as far as I've seen. And I've just heard apparently that it's gotten really bad again. As
if it wasn't already. That's so strange. Is it because we rely on these foreign factories? I think a lot of that has to do with it.
Yeah, probably. I would imagine that's probably
very smart that we let foreign countries dictate the terms of our drugs and our electronics. It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
Completely really brilliant. You know?
It's really cool that Chinese government officials are buying real estate en masse.
Yeah, it's really good. It's very really good. Very, very good.
It's so sick.
But I do think that 2023 is the year of Sacred Symbol's psychiatric break, just in the sense that I've drastically reduced my dosages of all the things I've taken this year too, and just kind of am trying to deal with it. Like I'm on a quarter of everything basically at this point.
What about weed?
Weed, I'm probably half or less.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I was smoking during my most strained. I would smoke like 6 or 7 joints a day.
Oh yeah, dude. I remember going over to your house and it was like walking into like when those kids try to rescue E.T. from the government. And there's like that haze.
It's like the in Fast Times at Ridgemont High when Spicoli's coming out of his van the first time and they all like roll out and it's just like a puff of smoke. And and I have no problem with that. I love weed. I think weed's awesome.
Yeah,
I think it's been very therapeutic. But I did realize. So I was like, I'm just smoking way too much. That's why I got like a bong and that's why I first started smoking vapes. And then I got a bong too I love smoking joints and blunts so much. Like that specific thing that if I can just mentally limit myself to 1 or 2 a day, which is what I do now, then I don't really smoke that much otherwise. Cause I'm like, I'm not going to, what am I fucking 20? I'm not going to smoke a bong all day. I mean, I'll smoke a bong a little bit. Yeah. And the cartridges I just have eased up on just because, man, they get you wrecked. I'll tell you that much. And I'm not trying to, people don't understand. I'm not trying to be stoned.
Yeah.
I don't really know if I can even get stoned anymore, to be honest with you. What I'm trying to do is just not feel feelings. You know what I mean? A dodge those feeling. You know understand what I'm saying?
I totally get it. Yeah. I didn't realize you. I don't think I've ever cognizantly been aware that you try vapes at all.
This is what I've been doing on the show.
Well, what it is, it's usually like the resolution is so bad on the camera that I don't really question it. Like what you're doing is like, all right, I guess whatever's going on there is implied.
Like it's supposed to be. I was reading a lot about it. There's so much stuff out there about, is it bad for you? Is it worse for you? And I think the general consensus is it's probably not good for you, but it can't be worse for you than smoking.
Right.
Like the carcinogen or whatever. But to me, I'm like, I feel like it's like, how could that not be 7 million times better for you? Who is that? What happened? Oh, thank you.
Who is that?
I saw a shadow.
Your betrothed walked into the room. I love the idea of like somebody reaches behind you while you're recording a show, puts something on your desk, and you're not sure who that is. The idea of that in and of itself is incredible. Colin Moriarty, serial vapist, unaware of his surroundings.
Many such cases. That's probably my favorite Trumpism is that people still use today, is many such cases.
Did he say that?
He said that just, I think, once, like years ago, and people just said that because it was like talking about something and people having me was like, many such cases. That whatever. It's like, why are you so awkward? So
get
weird.
Those lights off.
That's one of our favorite ones.
It's
here
great
in this household, in the Moriarty household. I don't know what the fuck we're doing. I just don't know. How can this show go on? Like, how long can we possibly continue to do this?
It's impossible. Oh, fuck.
We need Dustin as like a guiding agent in some way. I don't know. He just being there makes me a little more nervous.
Yeah, Dustin's like blinders on a horse.
Right.
Like it just keeps it from wandering off a bridge and tumbling into a chasm.
Like I feel him staring at me sometimes and I'm like, I think it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah, I feel like we could record for like 3 hours and then like, all right, let's get into the news. You know what I mean?
It's so funny how bloated the show has become, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. It's because it just is what it is. Like I just don't feel like I just can't do content straight up. Like a newscaster. I can't do it.
This isn't the news.
Right.
We are a show that talks about news, but like, it's just like, dude, you're not coming here for the same reason you're coming to like, I don't know, like any given like news media outlet. You know what I mean? We hope you have fun when you listen to the show, at least.
Yeah.
But it's not just like an info dump. It's not just like 60% of sales are down. And that's it. Like,
yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Cool. Like how interesting.
And then
could that be by itself?
Sponsored by Pfizer. And Boeing.
Brought to you by Raytheon. Take me to Raytheon. Crazy Taxi Take Me to Raytheon is probably my favorite thing still to come out of the show.
People are, stand down. It's funny to me that became like a thing. That's another Trumpism that was like, because that's stand by and stand.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Stand down.
Racists. Racists, stand down. No, it's Proud Boys, right? It was like, Proud Boys stand. Like I love the idea that
racist stand. Should make a sticker of that.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
It's
my
bad.
God.
It's
All right.
bad.
Sacred Symbols is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Sometimes I have a crazy schedule. This month in particular, it's jam-packed with 2 different weddings in 2 different states. It's crazy. It's easy to fall into the dinner time recipe rut. Keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every week. So there's always something delicious to discover with HelloFresh. I am all about value, and that's one thing I love about HelloFresh is that you can also save money. HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout. That means less stress in your day and more money back in your pocket. HelloFresh is great because it's an easy way to try out new things, especially like I said, when you're in that rut of trying the same things over and over. HelloFresh does all the shopping, the meal planning. You're good to go with step-by-step recipe cards. It couldn't be easier. Go to HelloFresh.com/50sacred and use code 50sacred for 50% off plus free shipping. Go to HelloFresh.com/50sacred and use code 50sacred for 50% off plus free shipping.
Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Fume, a great way to break a bad habit. Learn more now at tryfume.com, that's F-U-M, and use the code SACRED at checkout. So what if the air around you smelled and tasted great? And what if you could channel that air through a neat, lo-fi device that personalizes the experience? Fume is an award-winning so-called flavor device, a discreet yet well-designed wooden siphon with a metallic tip that allows you to pull delightfully scented air, an obvious tool in helping you break a notoriously bad habit. Or you can just enjoy using one for no reason, like I do. Here's how Fume works. You unscrew the device and place a small disposable cylinder within. This cylinder is sold in a variety of flavors: sparkling grapefruit, raspberry lemon, maple pepper, and so on, and my favorite, orange vanilla. All Fume does is allow you to pull the air around you over and around these cylinders so that you smell and taste whatever's inside. There's no vapor, no electronics, and no harmful chemicals. It's literally breathing flavored air, and it's actually pretty cool, especially if you're looking to replace a bad oral fixation with a more positive one. As I write and record this ad, I'm breathing through my Fume, and it's really quite delightful. Imagine what it might do for you. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com, that's TRYFUM.com, and use the code SACRED at checkout, that's SACRED, to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use the code SACRED to save an additional 10% off your first order today. Early ad-free access on patreon.com/laststandmedia. Sacred Symbols Plus twice a week. Dagan and I have been recording and we'll continue to record these Spider-Man episodes. So we did Spider-Man 2018, like a 2.5-hour conversation about that because Dagan had never played it. I started it again and replayed it, 100%ed it. Just did the first DLC pack, which we'll talk about later in the show.
Oh,
Chris,
yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I've never played that stuff, so.
Yeah.
And then you did your mailbag, Chris, so that'll be up by the time or around the time this goes live for people, so check that out. Micah and I did a comprehensive conversation about Sea of Stars, which we're also going to talk about later because you started playing it, and I'm excited to hear what you're doing with that. Let's see what else. Dustin did an episode on Japan. We did the Armchair CEO episode, which was really, really fun about how we would take PlayStation, like the directions we would take PlayStation in. Sacred Cross Defining Duke, of course, all about Xbox and what's going on over there. An Alan Wake show. A lot of things coming up. So Spider-Man DLC episode is going to go live. The Miles Morales episode is going to go live. I have an interview with a producer from Atari, the current form of Atari, that is going to go live soon. That is going to be all about the creation of games, the middle space, and how games might survive or thrive in that space. So that'll be cool. A lot of things going on. And then I get married. So at the time I get married, Maddie has graciously, so our co-host of Defining Duke, our Xbox podcast, has graciously agreed to do an episode of Defining Duke Ultimate in place of Sacred Symbols that day. And I think they're going to be back to back, like a 2-part Starfield review, which I think will be pretty cool. I think that's what they're planning to do. So please look forward to it. Thank you very much. And Dalton Backlund wrote in, it's my last chance to talk about this game. He says, "Hey guys, first time writing in, but long time listener." Thank you, Dalton. Just wanted to give you a shout out to Colin for his recent positive comments on Immortals of Avium. I recently picked up the game on sale at GameStop for $40 and wanted to say that this is a steal for that price. And it is in fact a good game. It's unfortunate it's been buried, with the stacked games coming out this fall and the lukewarm reception it got during its launch. But nonetheless, just wanted to mention this was another Colin was right situation, and I'm glad Colin had mentioned this game on a previous episode of the show. Otherwise, I probably would have ignored the game entirely. Wondering if you have any plans on doing a Plus episode on the game. Anyways, thanks again, guys, for the great content. You have all made my commute to work better. No, I'm the only one that played it, so it'd be kind of boring. I can talk to myself about it, I guess. With effusive praise, but yeah, no one else in our circle played it. We're gonna have a problem though. I think not a problem. It's a good problem. Spider-Man 2 is a game that we have probably 7 or 8 people that we can do it, to the point where I'm wondering if we should just do 2, and just publish them at the same time and just be like, it kind of feels. I would feel bad about. And this is just a weird perspective. Maybe it wouldn't matter, but about the one I wouldn't be on, because I feel like that would come off as the less important one. It reminds me of the 2016 GOP debates, when there would be like the real debates, and then there would be the debate beforehand that was like the fake debate of the people that couldn't get on stage. I wouldn't want that vibe to be given to that show, because I'd want them to be given equal weight. But maybe that's a way to do it, because we have me, you. I'm sure Dustin's going to play. Dagan's going to play. Gene's going to play. Maddie's going to play. I think Cog's going to play. And I'm sure Hoag's going to play. So that gives us lots of people to pull from. It's going to be fun.
100%.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And we'll talk a little bit about Spider-Man 2 later. We don't have it yet because we don't accept early access to games, although I'm sure it's going to be great. I think someone actually published a review on accident and said it was really great. So I'm not surprised by that at all.
So I was thinking this a little bit today, because I was looking at like the schedule for the rest of the month, and I was thinking like, would you ever consider just being like, oh man, I'm getting married on like this day, Spider-Man's out at this day. Maybe I'll get early access just this once out of convenience.
That would be nice. I don't know if so. I would wonder. I haven't tried to talk to Sony, and they haven't talked to me since, I would say, 2019 at the latest. So I wonder what that would even be. Like, if I emailed them, would they email me back? Do they want to talk to me? Are they like waiting for me to say something? I doubt it. Like, my assumption is that they could give a fuck less about working with this show. And
probably.
Yeah. And that's the way I kind of want it. I don't want to have these weird relationships anymore. Yeah. I had to have them in media. They're nice. They're nice people personally that work at these various companies. It's just too much ass kissing. And here's the thing I've wanted to say this for weeks. It's funny that this comes up. Now I can finally say it. I remember to say it. It's to all my content creator friends out there. You know, those of you trying to make content, trying to get off the ground, or those that are established. When a company tells you that they don't have a code for you, they're lying directly to your face.
Yeah.
And when I started publishing my own games on PlayStation and other platforms, when I joined Lilymo and our first game came out after I joined in 2020, and I saw what we got back in return from these various publishers or these various console manufacturers, when you publish a game and you get literally 1,000 randomly generated codes per platform, and you didn't even ask for them, and there's like no way you can even give them all out. So when I kind of put 2 and 2 together and realized like how fucking annoying and obnoxious the way that a lot of the PR people operate in terms of this scarcity model that simply does not exist, especially for first party games, it makes me laugh. I think I saw someone circulating email got from Sony being like, we don't have a code available for you right now. It's like, you're Sony. You what are you, fucking crazy? You can make as many of those codes as you want. Just stop lying to everyone. And so when you just don't have to deal with PR anymore and there's the lying and the obfuscation, it's just so much easier. I don't miss it. And as I said before, I feel bad when a publisher randomly, mostly Japanese publishers, reach out to us and they're like, are you still not doing? I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm just this is not a check mark for you anymore. And it's better that way. Plus, so would it be nice for Spider-Man 2 to get it early? I guess. I don't miss it though. I don't miss the stress, especially of having to hit an embargo. I mean, we always think about Red Dead 2 and like how we had to really rush to get that game done in a timely fashion. And then you kind of wonder, it's like, why did we even do that? I don't know. It was because my mind was in the old model at that time.
Yeah. I mean, it made sense at the time. Oh, man.
All right. I'm parched.
That's fair.
Let me see here. Merch, laststandmedia.store. Check that out. Stickers, hats, shirts, sweatshirts, all shipped from my house. We appreciate you.
That's the selling point. That's the main selling point.
It's a huge selling point. Yeah, we just put up
on by Colin.
Yeah, exactly. I breathed on them. Maybe got some weed ash on them or something.
Yeah.
Ship it off to you.
Little souvenir
for you. Free shipping on all stickers. We did a final farewell reprinting, I think, of the Crying Jim sticker. So that will be back in stock soon, if not by the time you hear this. And we did a reorder on the Stealth Sacred shirts that people really liked, although I think they're already selling out again. So we're going to have to do another one in time for Black Friday, I guess. All right. Some things to talk about here. Yeah, I'm not going to read, in the second thought, I'm not going to read it that way. I had a listener, a lot of listeners wrote in about what's going on right now in the Middle East and with Israel and Hamas, Palestine, and Gaza and all the rest. And I was originally just going to read a letter from the audience to introduce it, but it's like, whatever. A lot of people wrote in about it. I was originally not even going to bring it up, but I do feel bad when people bring things up ad nauseum and then we ignore it. It feels kind of conspicuous. So I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to say about this situation? No, we don't speak as a show. I mean, we speak as individuals. So.
I mean, it's I don't know. It kind of, I look at online a lot and I see all these opinions and all these takes and all of these, a bunch of tweets and a lot of videos and stuff. And there's this famous Dave Chappelle bit where he goes like, "Where is Ja? What does Ja think about this?" And it's like, that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like, what do the Wiggles have to say about the Israel-Palestine conflict? It's like, there's no real point because it's not, the solution to this problem is not going to be solved on sacred symbols or like on Twitter or in like a Twitter space or in like some Instagram story. It's just not. So it kind of makes it feel a little bit pointless to even talk about. But what's happening is horrible. Everybody should condemn the death of civilians, regardless of what side you support. It's like, here. One thing I will say is this. I think there's a distinct difference between support for the Israeli government, support for the Jewish people, the support for the Palestinian people, and the support for Hamas. I think those are four separate things, and that is entirely reasonable to talk as if that's the case, because it is. I believe that, personally, what Israel, the situation that Israel has put themselves in, has manufactured for themselves, is horrible. And that doesn't justify what happens to their civilians. That doesn't justify what happens to Palestinian civilians. And it's just this ancient struggle that is, unfortunately, I see no end to it. That's the long and short of it for me, where it's like, I don't even know where to begin with this stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I do think that it's the single most complicated geopolitical issue in the world by a order of magnitude.
Yeah.
And
easily.
Because it's not like China and Taiwan or these other, it's like, it's so much more, and that's complicated too, but that it's so much more complicated because it's ancient history and it's a lot about religion and assumptions about places and times and, the idea of Zionism beginning in the 19th century and kind of colonializing that area, but that area also never being a country ever called Palestine and really it being an Ottoman territory. And before that, this Roman territory. And it's just like all fucked up. And one thing I know, there's several things I know for sure is that, and you're from New York too, so I'm sure you feel this, is that I'm from Long Island where 15% of our population is Jewish. It's Long Island. So outside of Israel, the three most populous places of Jewish people in the entire world is New York City, Los Angeles, and Long Island. And so you grow up, or at least I did, very immersed in it in a way that I think a lot of people aren't, in terms of what Zionism is or the plight of Israelis, the plight of Jewish people after World War II and historically and so on and so forth. So I'm definitely tuned in to that. And that does develop some sort of bias, no doubt about it.
Of course.
But I think that regardless of whether you have a bias or not, you can agree that terroristic acts are different than acts of rebellion per se, or going after power centers or doing all those kinds of things. I don't know. I mean, I know much more than the average bear about the situation, no doubt, but I don't know enough to want to really talk about like what the right and wrong is about where the territories is and who, like why the Israelis took this after this and why the Palestinians did this. And it really goes all back to 1948 and this idea of the partition and it's easy for me to say, but it's almost like, why didn't everyone just accept it then? And we would not be dealing with this. And the Arabs would have more land even. And it would be like, so, but I think we can all agree that like the acts of sheer terror are not acts of rebellion. They're two different things. And you don't have to fight back against the power structures by raping women and killing innocent children and kidnapping elderly people and doing. There is a structure by which fights and war happens based on a series of rules going back to the 18th and 19th century. And I just think that we have to differentiate those things. And it's so obvious that what happened is terroristic. And so, but to your point, how we got there and all of the rest is very much worth discussing still. But as you said, it doesn't mean anyone earned or deserved that kind of treatment.
It's unfortunate that getting into the nuance of that kind of thing really comes across to people as some kind of a justification, or like, oh, you're making excuses. Like, no, I'm explaining how this, like, why this is the way that it is. You know, unfortunately, the Israeli government's not particularly smart in how they've addressed this whole thing, because Palestine's like a really fucked place. People can't move. They have like they can't leave. It's like a bad situation.
Yeah, the country's like split in two parts basically at this point.
Yeah. And so to me, it's like the bad guys in the equation are clearly, you know, it's the Israeli government and Hamas are the bad actors, and the unfortunate reality is that like the innocent civilians on both sides are the people who are going to suffer the worst from it, which is awful.
Yeah, I mean it's a heinous, truly heinous situation, and unfortunately, I think it's just going to become way worse. And I agree with you where I don't know what what I do know is that we shouldn't be involved. We can sell arms to Israel and give them intelligence and whatever and give them their aid, but I want nothing to do with this conflict otherwise as an American. And at the same time, I want freedom and liberation for all peoples in that area. And I don't really know exactly how that even works or how that ever happens. I agree with you there. Just the more I learn about it and have learned about it over the years, the more muddy and gray it all became for me in terms of where it all began and who's right and who's wrong and how you solve it. And it's a really sad situation, but my, you know, we have a lot of Israeli listeners, and I'm thinking of you guys. I was talking to a few of you behind the scenes. I emailed a couple of my friends and texted with a few of my friends who've gotten called up. And, you know, of course, my American Jewish friends who are, you know, there's like a feeling right now in the Jewish world, you know, this is the greatest loss of life since the Holocaust for the Jewish people on a single day. And it's a horrible and terrible thing. And my thoughts and prayers are very much with Israel and very much with the people there. My hope is that, you know, the Palestinians and the Israelis can come to some sort of solution at some point in the future. But
yeah,
I just don't know how. It seems like worse than ever, you know, in some sense, like the vitriol.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
So it's like
a lot of people like just showing their ass.
Yeah.
In like ways that are genuinely surprising. A lot of war hawks out there. Just a lot of people who in like 2016 were like, man, Chris thought Trump was funny, so he's a Nazi, suddenly strikingly silent about like crowds in Australia chanting "Gas the Jews" or whatever the hell it was. Not a single mention at all. So that's cool. That's really sick. Epic. Love it. Love that. But I don't know, man. It's fucked.
Well, what I'm about to say is such a simple observation considering their specific plight in that area of the world. But I do think that like this constant obsession, as I say on the show, of division and subdivision of people by identity, like physical identity, even spiritual or religious identity, sex, gender, race, whatever, it all inevitably leads to this sort of thing. And I think that, I don't know, man. It's like because it forces us to ignore what binds us as humans. And I've said I long believe that I don't believe in any way, shape, or form that all civilizations or societies are born and created equal. I don't believe that. I think that there are superior civilizations and superior societies, and we live in one of them. But I think all people are born equal and deserve access as much as humanly possible to at least the same structure of rights. And so we can all agree at the very least that you don't invade a territory and rape women, that you don't use suicide bombing, and you don't. Dude, they came in. I mean, a friend of mine texted, is like, dude, they came in like Cobra in G.I. Joe and like fucking paragliders and stuff. It's like,
dude, it was like Fortnite or something. It was ridiculous. It looked absurd. Like you're looking at it, you're like, what the hell is this? This looks like a fucking cartoon almost.
It's just so to me, it's just that's not human. That's barbarism. And
yeah, that's objectively anybody who's like weird, like being like weird, like weirdly like obfuscating about that is like just concerning to me, because like there's it's one thing to be like, you know, free Palestine. That's a sentiment that I think a lot of people would probably agree with in some way. And even if you were like on the opposite end, that's not like a difficult perspective to understand at the very least. So when I see people like tweeting Palestinian flags or whatever, it's like that to me is fine. But then I saw this one tweet of like an image of like a paraglider with the Palestinian flag, and I'm like, oh, free Palestine. It's like, that's not what that is.
Right.
That's not what that is.
Yeah, know the difference. Yeah,
it's weird how, I don't know. To me, the difference seems pretty obvious, but
dude, it is obvious. And it's what you said about people showing their asses and just, I don't know. It's just a sad situation. And I think it's also a reminder that we do a show and we talk about a lot of different things, but you don't have to have like this detailed opinion and like harsh stance on everything that ever happened. Like you could be flexible and malleable. You could just be sad for the loss of life. And I think that that's perfectly okay too, you know, and not even begin to understand the geopolitical realities and not even but just understand what's human and what isn't, I think is fine. And like, I hope that they straighten it out over there, man, because the world sure does seem like it's getting this World War III vibe.
Yeah.
We have two fronts now.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And like, so what China goes after Taiwan or something? It's like, so that's a third front, you know, and then it's, we're in like Metal Gear Solid or something. You know? It's not good. So
no,
I'm thinking of everyone out there and hoping everyone is doing well, and, you know, keep your wits about you, keep your head about you. And I just mean that for everyone out there listening. Just this kind of stuff is, and one thing I think is important. I was telling Micah this, although I don't think it's for everyone and it's not for her. I understand, but I personally think you should lean into looking at the violent images and videos. Like, don't compartmentalize it and pretend this stuff doesn't happen. It happened. Like, understand what war is, understand what terror is, look at all of it. It's fucking, it'll remind you that this isn't some sort of newspaper editorial or something like that. It's real. And that kind of stuff makes me so it just reinforces my anti-war and anti-violence perspective more than ever. It's like, this is not a sustainable future. This is fucking insanity. And just creates revenge upon revenge upon revenge to generational standards. And so look at that stuff, man. At least look at one or two of the images and see that it really did happen.
Yeah. Well, we solved it.
That's it.
Yeah, we solved it.
That's it. Let's sign the accord and...
Yeah, you can thank us later.
Yeah. And
how embarrassing would that be, by the way? If, like, we somehow... It's like, so they listened to sacred symbols and they were like, oh, you know, they're right, actually.
And everyone came together and I'd like to buy a world of Coke.
Oh, man.
All right. Let's get into the show here. We have a couple corrections, actually. Alex Alfonso wrote in and said, hello there, Beyond. Don't say that on the show. I want to invoke a Minority Report as a native Brazilian. That's an old reference. I don't know if that's a reference to Beyond or P.S. I Love You. It must have been a reference to P.S. I Love You because when Kevin would talk on the show, I think we would call it the Minority Report because he was Peruvian.
Oh, that's funny.
When in the last episode, Chris mentioned that Brazilians speak Brazilian when in fact we are Portuguese speaking fellas. Also to note that I don't know why exactly Brazilians do not consider themselves Latinos and are usually surprised when they realize they are treated as such in the US. Cheers. And I'm thrilled to catch you guys in the UK next year as I am currently living in Portugal. Thank you, Alex, for writing. And so I missed this, or I would have saved you. But I guess in hearing people say that you said this, I was like, was it a joke?
No, well, it's what it is. It's short because I have like, I know two Brazilian, I have two Brazilian friends in my overall group. And we kind of just naturally joke about them speaking Brazilian because we always talk about like how we speak Puerto Rican, and which is not a language. You know, like it's like a type of Spanish, and like they speak a specific type of Portuguese that like they say it's like, oh, we speak Brazilian, we don't speak Portuguese, which I know it's Portuguese, and I know that Puerto Rican is Spanish, but I don't know. That was more inside baseball that I accidentally kind of like slipped into the podcast. They speak Portuguese, but I will say, like, I don't know, man, like the whole like whether or not they consider themselves Latino thing is weird, because Latino to me just means like Latin America. But I guess it's like it doesn't mean that to everybody, so it's like whatever. They prefer to be called South American. But like, I don't know. The people that I hang out with don't give a shit, really. So like, you know.
Unfortunately for them, I don't care what they prefer to be called. So they're going to be Latino King. I can see that developing a little bit in places like Brazil and even Argentina, which is not Portuguese speaking, but where there's a different sort of identity that's some sort of fusion. It's like a very white Spanish sort of thing going on in some of these places. And I don't mean that only in terms of skin color, because there obviously are a lot of Europeans that have gone there and white Spanish people, but there's just like this whole different vibe and tone down there that's developing. And so very much like Australia or something, where Australia has its own vibe.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's part of the English speaking world, but I don't consider it very close for some reason, even though it's very close to us in lots of different ways. So,
yeah. But yeah, that's like, I don't know, because I said we talk sometimes about like people speaking Southern.
Yeah.
Like people who are like, what you doing over there? Like that's Southern to me. It's English, but it's like they're speaking Southern.
Right.
Like that was I got to remember that I'm not speaking to my friends when I talk to like thousands of people. And you know, that's not a pedantic correction, but just the pedantic stuff. You got to be prepared for that. You got to be willing to shield 100%. Up. And you are correct. You are correct.
Yes. Jacob Yates wrote in and said, Sacred Gents, everyone, but specifically Chris ×2, has mentioned Sony does not make the highest tier of consumer electronics. This is incorrect. A Sony TV has won every Value Electronics US TV shootout since 2018. The Value Electronics shootout consists of industry experts grading company-sponsored televisions side by side in multiple categories. 2 weekends ago, the Sony A95L won this competition by a large margin. Put some respect on the name. Thanks. Multiple people have written in about this over time. I forgot that Dustin wasn't going to be on the show because I would need his technical expertise here as well. But what is this person talking about?
Yeah. So I didn't go and check the highly esteemed Value Electronics US TV shootout. I didn't seek their counsel. No, I guess I don't know. I guess this is like some weird judging thing where I guess Sony's won a lot. It makes no fucking difference to me because nobody I know cares to buy a Sony TV, and I've seen it just out in the wild. They don't look great in the store either. So I'm sure maybe that's true in like a really granular level. I'm sure like it might be one of those situations where it's like Bing, where like apparently Bing is like way better than Google, but no one in their right mind is going to bother using Bing. It probably is a similar situation like that, where like maybe there's like something about Sony TVs that are like objectively better, I guess, like on like a certain level, but consumers don't seem to care. And I know I don't seem to care because I don't know, man. The LG and Samsung seems to be at the top of their game for like, or they seem to be at the top of their game as far as TVs go in the eyes of the general consumer. I'm not talking about what is this Value Electronics US TV shootout. I don't know their reading necessarily.
It's not a great name. I don't know. I'm gonna look it up.
I looked it up like earlier and I was like, what is this? And it's, I guess it's I don't know. Like it's, I don't know how esteemed it is. Like I have no concept of what this even is, but I'm willing to look. I'm not like a technical expert. I'm willing to defer to the Value Electronics US TV shootout if they're TV experts. But in my personal experience, a lot of like Sony's just kind of fallen off the market in a lot of ways as far as TVs go. Like it's just not the consumer choice. So
eat shit, Jacob. Thanks for writing in. I'm like, no, thank you for really writing in. Thank you for that. Don't eat shit, though.
That's interesting. I had no idea what that was. The Value Electronics US TV shootout. This
you got to do a better name. You have to have a better name than that.
That's a horrible name. Yeah.
Because it sounds budget.
The value in it sounds like great value.
Yeah, great. There's a brand actually. I think it's like, I don't really quite know what it is, but it's I think a right wing somewhat popular video YouTube brand or maybe streaming brand called Valuetainment. And apparently it's pretty good. Well, or some of the stuff is interesting on there. I don't know much about it, but anytime I see that name pop up, I'm like, no, Valuetainment?
Value. That's a
Dude,
bad
that
name,
I
man.
couldn't. Could you come up with a worse name than that?
No.
There's not a worse name than that. That you literally picked the worst name that you could possibly come up with.
You could maybe make a worse name if it was just several slurs stapled together.
Right.
And I'm
looking up Valuetainment right now. They don't have a wiki page, but Jedediah. I don't know who this is. Well, anyway, our mission: to enlighten, entertain, and empower current and future leaders around the world. Valuetainment is the leading source for information, education, and entertainment centered on the fundamentals of entrepreneurship and capitalism. Oh, they name their Value Entertainment Movement.
It's not, no.
Yeah, sorry.
It's not good.
I can't take it.
It's bad.
I just don't want it.
Yeah.
All right. Noah T wrote in. This is an interesting one. This brought me back to my days on Long Island. He says, "Hey, Sacred Boys. On the topic of absurd neighbors, I wanted to share my current experience and see where you all stand. I live in a new housing development in the suburbs outside of Minneapolis." A lot of you are writing in from the Twin Cities recently. "Most of the homeowners are millennials with young children. Our neighbors across the street are particularly paranoid about their children's safety when it comes to car speed. They let them play in the front yard and constantly yell at passing cars, including myself, to slow down, despite driving the speed limit of 30 miles per hour. This is a daily occurrence, and just a week ago, it resulted in a driver getting out of his car and vulgarly confronting the father at his audacity. I expected this to end it, but it seems to have only added the fuel to his fire. Each day now, I come home to an increasing amount of slow down signs, with as many as 6 swarming all sides of the street at once. Yesterday, I even came home to a huge police-issued LED trailer flashing slow down. I couldn't believe it. What do you make of this? Is it not the responsibility of the parents to assure their kids are staying out of the street? Should I roll down my window and ask my neighbors to politely stand down? Thanks for everything." I can kind of relate to this in a way because, first of all, I don't know if you ever had this experience. Well, definitely up, kind of like north of New York City, more wooded and all of this, and driving down these streets, and then a guy will come out and be like, "Slow down." I remember like coming out telling people to slow down all the time. But in my neighborhood, people have these, and this is why I wanted to read it. They have these like yellow fake children stands that hold an orange flag. You know what I'm talking about? And it says "slow down" on them, but they kind of look like Ninja Turtles in some sense. And I see them scattered all around my neighborhood at times, and like to let people know that kids are playing around there or whatever. People, I mean, rightfully so. People are pretty serious about this. But the other thing I find in my neighborhood is that people drive comically slowly to avoid children. Like you're barely moving when there's a child, so that no one runs in front of it. What do you think about this? Being told to slow down in your own neighborhood?
I mean, it's annoying, but I think I'm just very cognizant of the fact that like the second you have kids, there's probably a lot of things in your brain that completely swap, like where like your brain is just entirely like, I have to protect this. And so you're probably going to do things that like a single 20-something-year-old you probably wouldn't think to do, like put up 18 signs telling strangers to slow down in your neighborhood. I think it's why people like parents are just unaware of how annoying their own kids are. I've known like it's just this kind of thing where it's like their own kids, like it's like, oh man, the sound of them like screaming is like pain to me, but like to them they're like, oh man, oh, they're having such a great time. Their ears are bleeding, shooting out. It's so my assumption is I would probably do the same thing, assuming that I had kids and lived in wherever this place is. That's my assumption. So I don't know. I don't mind it necessarily. Also, I'll just slow down, or I'll just speed up, and then I'll get the hell out of there.
Yeah, speed up, get out of there quicker. I mean, you have to look at it. What is better, to go through quickly to subject the child to fewer seconds of danger, or to prolong the possibility of the danger, but ensure the safety of the child nonetheless?
It's such a lawyer ass response. If I speed, I'll get out of there quicker, thus minimizing harm.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Probable cause. Not probable cause. Doubt. Reasonable doubt.
Probable cause is the opposite, I feel.
Reasonable doubt is the term I'm looking for. I'm no lawyer. All right.
Oh, man.
Thank you for writing in. Yeah, I love that just because I wanted an excuse to talk about the little turtle people that people put out with their orange flags in their neighborhoods now that say slow on them. They look like Raphael. And if you ever seen,
I've never seen those. I remember just like signs saying slow down, or like there would be a sign with a child on it. You know, like those like red signs that say like children at play, or like there was one that would say like one of my favorite ones that I saw in upstate New York just said slow children, which made me laugh.
Slow children.
Hard. I was like, oh man, this is a wild neighborhood.
Oh wait, I think I found exactly the one. I'm going to show it to you.
This is the gas leak town.
Oh wait, is this? Yeah, this is it. Okay, cool. Hold on, it's like I'm going to put it in here.
Put it in the chat.
Yep. And then I'll make a note here. Maybe we'll get a visual of it. I don't know. I can't promise that.
Step 2 kid alert. You know what? He looks like Franklin.
Yeah, he does. Franklin. Like, yeah.
He looks exactly like Franklin, the turtle from that show.
Well, because to one of my neighbors, I'm like, that looks like a little ninja turtle. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like,
yo, I'm not.
It looks like a turtle.
No, dude, look. It is exactly. Look at this. That's just what that is.
Yeah, that's strange. Yeah, it is. It is him. How did he get involved in this?
Maybe he was forever memorialized because he was hit by a car.
That's sad.
Yeah, poor Franklin.
What is the deal with Franklin?
I don't know. He's just a fellow, you know?
Yeah, he is a little guy. Franklin TV series. Yeah, this 90s. Yeah, because I remember it being on, but being like, I was too old for it. 97 to 2004. But this might have been right in your wheelhouse, you know?
Yeah, I don't remember. It wasn't like Hey Arnold or anything where it was like, you know, the real cartoons. It was like kind of those cartoons that they were real, but you got a sense that they were trying to teach you something, so they were kind of like lame. But you watched them anyway because they were like decently produced. It's like a step up from like I remember on Nick Jr. they had Face. You know what Face was? Face was literally just a big solid color. And it was just like a face.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This was after my time, I think. Yeah, this was from 2004.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. And I'm like, no, I don't know what the hell this is supposed to be. But
well, I had the mind of a toddler in 2004. I was in college. So I was too old to be watching Nick Jr. at that time. But
that makes sense.
Nick Jr. during my era was totally strange and different. I was I was probably 4 or 5 when Nick Jr. came out. And so I was like right in that wheelhouse, and it was really good. Very nostalgic times for me, no doubt. Franklin, though, didn't he do a thing where he would like he would go into his shell, right, or something like that? Wasn't that like a thing he would do, like where he would get scared and go into his shell?
All I really authentically remember about Franklin was there was an episode where he was on a school bus and he was getting picked on. I think the episode was about bullying or something, and somebody made an edit of like this bear. It was like this bear character going like, "What are you gonna do, Franklin? What are you gonna do?" And he goes, "That's it." And then he turns and pulls out a gun. and it's one of the funniest things I've seen. I love that video. I wonder if I'm sure I could find it still. It's like got to be a popular video.
But, love it.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Oh yeah, I wanted to see what you thought of this. Daniel Bobby wrote into us. So we're done with the lawnmower saga. We've moved on.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a new one now. Hey guys, listening to the lawnmower situation unfold over the previous 2 episodes has inspired me to present my own situation and seek the wise counsel of the sacred triumvirate. I've been forced to commute to the office for a month now due to an RTO mandate for return to office. My office is in Santa Monica and I live about 25 miles away, so the commute is nightmarish. Oh my God. Dude.
I remember that.
As you can imagine, that must be awful. You got to move to Santa Monica if you're going to work there. I can't even imagine not living there and working there. The silver lining I was clinging to is that it offered me some me time away from my wife and 7-month-old baby where I can just listen to music, podcasts, or scream at the top of my lungs as I desire. That all went away, though, when a coworker who happens to live in the same city as me asked if I would mind carpooling. He is recovering from knee surgery and doesn't have a parking pass for the office, so carpooling means I drive every day, and my me time is now spent straining to find topics of conversation to fill the awkward silence. What should I do? I tried coming up with an elaborate and inconsistent schedule to deter him, but he remains stubbornly flexible. He and I are the only 2 from our team in this area, with everyone else spread around the country, so I don't want to do anything to make it awkward we're in the same office together. But I just want my drive time to be solo despite the cost benefits and HOV access. The HOV, that's actually a big one, though. How can I let him down gently? My additional context, I spent 2 years at a previous job picking up a coworker every day who lived down the street from me who did not drive at all, and my only way out was to seek new employment. Hoping to avoid another such scenario here. Thank you. Chris, what do you think of this? This is an interesting scenario he finds himself in.
Yeah, this is I don't know if I have any good advice for this one. This is a rough situation to be in, because like you think about the HOV access, and it's usually pretty good, but it has the same problem that a lot of like, almost like at the movie theater when there's like a premium line, and then there's like a normal person line. There are so many people who buy the premium thing that the premium line is so long, and then the normal person line has no wait at all. So like that happens a lot with HOV, or at least over here. I haven't been in the HOV in Santa Monica in a while, but like it'll clog up like crazy, and I'm just like, oh man, that's defeats the purpose, kind of. So that's not even necessarily like a 100% win in that regard. So like I don't know, man, that sucks. I wish I had good advice for this. You're stuck. You're gonna have to die with this person.
Yeah.
He's gonna be there.
He's your soulmate.
Yeah, yeah, that's rough though. It's so bad to share a long car ride with somebody that you just don't. It's not even that you don't like them. It's just like there's just like nothing to. There's nothing in common at all. That's like awful. Because you feel like you have to be doing something. You feel like you have to be talking about. I've always felt weird about like doing that thing where it's like, all right, well, I mean, we're adults. Like we don't have to necessarily talk. I'm going to put my headphones on. But then that feels disrespectful, even though there's nothing meant by it. I don't know. This is a rough one, man. Rest in peace.
Yeah, man. It is tough because I think there are ways out of it, but you have to, because I think what you were doing is right. Just being like, oh, I'm not doing it. I'm not working here. I'm taking this time off, or I need to stay extra hours or whatever. But I think about, it's funny. I hadn't thought about this in a while, that when I worked at Kind of Funny, there was like a week where I was carpooling with Nick Scarpino, my old friend from Kind of Funny. And so my girlfriend at the time lived in the marina in San Francisco, which is a part of the city. And he lived there too. So I was like, can you just like come and pick me up on the way to work? And he did it like 3 or 4 times. And then he was just straight up with me. He's like, I can't do this anymore because I need like me time to like go get Starbucks and do things. And like, he's married. He wants to probably get away from his wife a little bit and all that kind of stuff. And I hadn't thought about that in a long time. And I was like, I was hurt like in the moment, but then just after a little bit of contemplation, I realized, yeah, he's like in a situation. I didn't mean to put him in a situation. I'm trying to help myself out. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. That it's that big of a deal to him is his right, and he should express that. So with that in mind, I'm thinking here, maybe you just tell this guy what you're thinking,
Yeah.
And maybe just inquire, because you said he had knee surgery, right? You say that's somewhere in here. I guess that precludes you from driving. I would believe it, especially if it's, I guess, your driving foot or driving leg. But maybe just establish like, so when are you going to start driving to the office again or whatever? And if it comes to it, because I think you have to live for you. Maybe it's a little Randian, but I think you have to live for yourself first. Like you can't ride a miserable life and dodge things that bother you when you can the only thing stopping it from changing is you. Right?
Yeah, that is true.
And so like imagine he does this 50 times, right? And the only thing that was required of him was on the first time to say like, I don't really want to do this. And it's like, and the guy's got to think at some point, you have to kind of be sympathetic with the guy on some level too, Chris, because you're giving him the vibe, I think, that it's okay. So he feels like okay, probably. Right.
It's like misleading in some way because he thinks it's probably like great, or like he thinks he's like I could see a scenario where he almost thinks he's doing you a favor in some way, where like especially if he's like offering to chip in for gas or something, or if he's like like, hey, like I don't know what kind of conversations you're having, but like it seems to me that you're just in a situation because you have not made it clear that it is, and I'm not saying to be like weird about it necessarily, or like, oh, when you pick them up, roll your eyes or something, you know what I mean? But I feel like the best way out of this is really just saying something.
Yeah, candor, I think, is okay, or
underrated.
Yeah, and just play around with it a little bit. Just be like, yeah, so. And I think that any rational person that's not in their feelings on a long-term basis will understand that everyone needs their alone time and like their ability to operate without having to worry about someone else. It does remind me though that, and that's why I was glad he brought up the HOV lane. There are some advantages. I remember, I'm sure this happens in New York and other cities too, but I don't know. I remember that in San Francisco, there would be like a place you can go in Oakland across the Bay Bridge and pick someone up. Just pick up a random passenger that would be waiting, and then you can drive across the bridge. And I don't know what it was if you didn't pay a toll or got some HOV access or whatever, but people that worked at IGN used to do that, where it was basically a way for everyone to both sides to kind of get something out of it. Where it's like, I just need a ride over the bridge so I can get into the city, and I don't have to take BART. And you get a passenger in your car that allows you to circumvent this thing, and then you just drop me off at this part on the other side of the bridge. And I always thought that was kind of clever. But
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But this kind of thing, you're like in bondage to this dude, basically. You know, you're in hock to him. I can't have that.
I totally get it though. Like I totally get, like, cause I up until recently, even still to this day, I still think I'm kind of fighting these innate kind of passive urges or these passive instincts where I'm like, I will put up with so much discomfort for such a long time as long as other people are comfortable. And I've just always done that. I don't know why, whatever. Like I value other people. I value other people's comfort more than I do my own in a lot of instances, which I'm starting to only now try to undo. Where I'm like, all right, I don't want to do this. You know, like I don't want to go here. I'm not going to go. That might hurt this person's feelings or whatever, or it might not. I just can't care. It's too much.
I agree. I mean, you got to find that balance. Of course, you got to do things you don't want to do sometimes. And you have to do things for people.
Yeah.
And all the rest and go out of your way. I mean, that's different. But just being put out in some mechanized form like that every day of your life.
Yeah, that's bad.
Different, dude. Totally different. All right, Drew. I wanted to end with Drew. He says, "Hi, Sacred Team. I was getting gas and coffee at my local Wawa, which is way better than Sheetz, Dustin. But anyway, he's not here, so you're insulting just a fucking ghost right now. Mm-hmm. Wearing my brand new Sacred Symbols hoodie. The lady cashier behind the counter, who was wearing elf ears and a druid hairpiece in light of Halloween, said she liked the symbol on my hoodie and asked what it was. I said, it's from a PlayStation podcast called Sacred Symbols. It's kind of dorky. She laughed and said, I want a skirt made of it. Then told me to have a blessed day. Is this the beginning of an untapped fashion line for the brand? Looking forward to the next round of merch. Take care, guys. Drew. Drew. Why are you fumbling, dude? Are you kidding me?
I was thinking the exact same thing, dude. You messed that up, man. Come on. Oh my God,
Drew.
Women don't just talk to people.
No.
Or at least in my experience. I've never seen that happen just for no reason. So
no,
that's pretty crazy.
Maybe you're not attracted to her, maybe you're not around the same age or whatever, but I just imagine this as like you could have had a potential moment here, been like, gotten a number. People need to be more assertive. I think I learned that. I never considered myself an assertive person at all, but had no problem dating as a teenager and into my 20s. And I think it just came from like some level of understanding that you must put yourself out there and interact in some of these different ways. And you read these things now where like, I think a third of 20-year-olds or something have like never talked to a woman or anything. It's like, what?
That can't be true though.
It's like crazy. It's just crazy. Like, get out of your shells.
Yeah.
That's coming from me of all people, but I'm old now. I wasn't always old and I wasn't always boring. You know?
It's crazy, man. Like that is, I read this and I was like, dude, come on. But I will say, I laughed also reading this because I was thinking of myself in a similar situation. Not even necessarily in like the fumbling situation, but like just the idea of like somebody asking me what that symbol meant. And then I immediately overthought it and been like, how the fuck do I explain this to a person who doesn't know what this is? And I probably would have been like, it's just a symbol. Like, it's like when people ask me like, what do you do? It's like, editor. I edit, you know, how do I explain all of this? I can't.
I go through life hoping no one asks me what I do.
Oh yeah, dude. Yep. It's my heaven is just to live this life of mediocrity, but no one interrupts me to ask me what I do.
Right.
that's my ideal of my ideal paradise.
Or you could lie to people, like occasionally would do that in Ubers, like just tell a fake story.
Oh yeah. It's so funny. I do that constantly in Ubers. I do it to keep myself on top of my game on like improv stuff.
Yeah.
So like sometimes I'll be like, yeah, I'm like an architect. And you're like,
Like,
oh,
like Vandalay.
Like Vandalay, and they're like, oh, where'd you go? And I'd be like, oh yeah, I went to Binghamton or whatever the hell. And usually they don't know what the hell. But they're always like, oh, that's cool. Like, how long you been doing it? It's like, it's like 8 years. It's like, how old are you? It's like, oh yeah, I was a star pupil. It's
good
fun.
to get
It's
yourself
just fun.
It's good to get yourself in. I think it's good, like from the writer's point of view, to just make stuff up sometimes and just spin it
Just
on.
Just for the story. There was a time like I was when I first met this animator friend of mine. His name's Zach. He's Psychic Pebbles on YouTube. I'm sure like a lot of people have probably seen his stuff. But like he created Smiling Friends on Adult Swim, which has a second season coming out soon, I think. But when I first met him, we met at like a place called Barney's Beanery. And we were just like, we got to the bar, we sat in the booth, we started drinking, we started just talking, and some drunk guy came up to us and he was like, hey, how you guys doing? And he goes, and he goes, oh, it's going good. This guy's a Hitler Youth. And I was like, yeah, man, yeah, it's pretty nuts. And he was like, oh, that's wild. Like, I don't support that at all, but like, it's good that you're doing what makes you feel good. And it was like,
that's
it was
wild.
Like, he was so shit faced. It was crazy, but it was so funny, that interaction. And we just kept going like, it's like, yeah, this guy hasn't changed his pants in 8 days. He shits in his underwear, and he's like, wow, that's nuts. How do you do? He was like genuinely inquisitive, like, how do you live like that, man? That was probably the most entertaining like meetup I've had with anybody, because it was just so out of pocket. But
bitch, you live like this?
Bitch, you live like this?
Oh, Drew. I don't know. Maybe I'm overanalyzing the situation, but I feel like
you fumbled a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like there was something there. I mean, maybe she was like a 70-year-old. I have no idea, but maybe you're into that too. I'm not trying to judge you or be. Yeah. I'm not about that.
Yeah, you know? Everybody needs love, I guess.
There's only 2 small news items before we get into what we're talking or what we're playing, what we're talking about. I don't know what we're talking about. We're never going to get to that. Only 2 small news items, though. We usually have way more than this, but there's just not much going on in the industry from a smaller perspective. The first thing I wanted to say, and we don't have to talk about this anymore, is the CEO of Unity, who's also the president, John Riccitiello, has retired and is leaving Unity. He's been in that post, I think, for about 10 years. And I don't know. I'm kind of just bored of this story at this point. No offense to the people that were affected by it. I do think that there was while I think it was a really big deal for what they were doing and what they were trying to wedge in, I also think that I think that the message was heavily amplified in hindsight by the few developers that would be affected by this. That, their claim that more than 9 in 10 developers would never even have any problems with what was being said or whatever. It just felt like a kind of coordinated PR thing to fight back, which is fine, but I don't really want to be a part of that kind of thing either. I just want things to operate on some sort of level. So I have no more interest in talking about the story, but I'm wondering if you feel the same.
Yeah, I mean it's over as far as I like. To me, it makes sense that he would retire, because that was just like a bad idea. It's just simply not the way to go. Just objectively, like I could have told you that was like a really, really like disastrous move for them. He really, I don't want to say it's Don Matrick-esque, but it's like almost of that level where it's like, dude, you've done a lot of damage to the Unity brand as far as like the trust that a lot of developers have for that engine. And like you said, like it's not going to be most developers, but it is going to be the only ones that really have an impact on the industry. Like most people just stick around with Unity in their free time or just to learn or just to make little things, and there are some smaller developers that are using Unity to make stuff that won't be exploding into the mainstream. But I don't know, man. This dude really screwed up their reputation in a big way, and they lost a lot of ground. And so it makes sense to me that this guy kind of stepped down. But I'm also of the mind where it's like, this is a boring story.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's fine. Yeah. I mean, it's important, but again, I feel like there was I feel like it was how would I put this? The zone was flooded with one singular perspective based on the pull of a collective of major developers that didn't necessarily represent the average customer on Unity. that would have maybe had a problem nonetheless as well. But it just seemed in hindsight like, wow, maybe we really didn't investigate this as deeply as we should have, even though the answer was wrong. It just seemed very strong. And I think a lot of that just came from this nexus of powerful PR and, you know, the pull that these developers had to kind of flood the zone and make the change that they want. And that's the kind of power that they have as a collective. But I just felt like it was a weird, the story is kind of peculiar, I guess, in my mind.
It is also just on Unity's end. It's just, they messaged that so badly. Because even reading through like their initial statements about like what was changing, it was so, I don't know, just unnecessary. Like, it was so verbose without actually saying any of the things. Like, because they later clarified certain things. Where it's like, oh no, we don't mean this. We mean this. Like the retroactive fee that was like going around a lot. They were like, oh, that's not how that works. But if you read the original stuff that they were saying, it's like that does sound like what they were trying to do. And it's maybe they did mean to do it and they backpedaled after they found out that it wasn't going over well, or maybe they genuinely didn't mean to, you know, convey that idea and somehow conveyed it anyway. But their messaging was just bad, and that's ultimately what led to this huge PR nightmare. It was just how bad they were at messaging this change. And even if it was a positive change, which I'm of the mind that it wasn't, but you know, just got to message your shit better. That's it.
And I'm also looking up. I was just looking up as you were talking, like the headcount at Unity, and that's what brought to, because I bring that up because they obviously have major expenses because they need to churn money, obviously, for their investors too. They are publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, so they have to deliver these dividends and deliver good earnings reports, and they're under this huge crunch. And I'm just surprised that they employ 7,700 or so people, and that's going to be a major cost. I wonder why they feel like they need to have that many people. Is Unity Technologies as an overarching company seems like many other tech companies, from my perspective, quite bloated. And I wonder if they can bring costs down in some long-term way that wouldn't in other words, than having to render new costs to the user base that would rile them up. Because I wonder how many people change their projects over and all the rest throughout all this. I have no idea. The only other piece of news I wanted to bring up comes from Video Games Chronicle, although this was reported by others as well, is that basically there seems to have been some layoffs at Telltale. Now we know the new constituted Telltale games, not the old Telltale. The old Telltale closed down in 2018, and they obviously came back in 2019, and they revived, amongst, I think, other projects, The Wolf Among Us 2. And this game apparently is still in development, but there have been some layoffs nonetheless. So according to a statement that was shared by Jeff Keighley, of all people, which VGC reports on, the studio said, quote, "Due to current market conditions, we regrettably had to let some of our Telltale team go recently. We did not take this action lightly, and our commitment to storytelling and finding new ways to do so remains the same," and so on and so forth. And they say all projects currently in development are still in production. We have no further updates at this time. So sad to hear.
Yeah.
Hope that the game does well. I know Mike is looking forward to The Wolf Among Us 2. I don't know anything about the subject matter at all.
Yeah. I think I played the first episode, and I was like, this is good. And then I just never followed up. Oh, well.
That's how episodic content goes, at least for me.
Yeah, literally.
All right. That's it. Let's get into the games we're playing. I want to start with you, Chris, today. Seems that you're playing some interesting stuff. I'll leave it to you to talk about.
Yeah, so I'm still going through Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, which is continuing to be awesome. Great addition. I'm not really going to talk about it anymore until I finish it, because I just want to get through the story and like really have something to say about the story and like whether or not it was worth it. I've heard it's great, but I want to see it for myself. I think from what I've heard, I'm about like halfway through, or like a little bit more than halfway through. So I should be finishing that in the coming days. But I did want to talk about the fact that I started playing Sea of Stars, just kind of on a whim. I don't know what was going on necessarily. I was kind of like in the living room with my parents, and they were kind of on their phones, and I was kind of like, what do I want to play? And I was bouncing between these different action games. I was bouncing between, Halo and Destiny and other like really action oriented games. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not feeling this right now. And then Sea of Stars was sitting there on Game Pass, and I was like, I guess there's nothing. I guess I won't lose anything from trying this.
Yeah.
And so I gave it a shot. And I'm about 3.5 hours in, I think, maybe. I'm up to the point where you meet your first the first person that isn't the main in your main 3.
Right.
Which is still pretty early. But I gotta say, man, like I'm really a lot more into it than I thought I would be. I kind of assumed that it was going to be one of these games that I picked up and I was like, all right, it's cool and I appreciate it, but it's not for me. But I'm sticking with them. Like actually like weirdly invested in the story for some reason. It's really difficult for games with no VO to do that for me. Like I don't know what has happened. I used to be able to do that no problem, but for some reason, like I need voice actors and it's not a problem for me now, at least in this game. And I gotta say that the combat specifically is what's really been a pleasant surprise because it's still turn-based and there's still like strategy there. I love the whole like if you're down mechanic, you kind of have to like cleverly maneuver like your way, like just to buy your guy time.
Right.
I really like that. And I love the fact that there is a timing element where it's like, okay, it is turn-based, but then there are these like real-time elements, specifically with the girl's attack where she like has like the moon thing where you can like deflect it as many times as possible as long as you get the timing right. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I like in games like this. And it reminded me a little bit of Child of Light in that way, because I feel like I remember Child of Light having real-time elements in the middle of your turn-based combat. I don't remember how they exactly manifested in Child of Light, but it was somewhat similar where there was like some real-time element where your reflexes had to be on point, at least in some way to deal extra damage or get the most out of your attacks. And I was like, this is what I need in turn-based combat. This is the kind of interactivity I need. It's like I love being able to have an impact on what I choose based on my actual ability physically, instead of like rolling a die and having like some weird kind of invisible system decide for me. I think that's awesome. I really like these characters. The music's awesome. The game's beautiful. So it's still pretty early to tell, but I don't know, man. I'm really kind of enamored with it in a way that I was genuinely surprised by. Even after hearing you guys talk about how great it was after all this time. Because just usually, I usually have this feeling of, okay, these are probably great games, but like I just know me. I'm like really neurotic about this stuff. Like I need certain elements there. I'm more of a third person, first person, action oriented player. So it's probably not going to be for me. But so far, it kind of is. And I'm looking forward to playing more. I keep thinking about it too, which is a good sign for a game's longevity for me.
Great. I mean, it's a really great game, and I think a very cozy and comfortable game to play. I'm really glad you're liking it. I agree with you about the systems too. It's something Micah and I went into extensively on our Sacred Symbols Plus episode about Sea of Stars, which people can listen to now on Patreon if they want. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. Is that what makes the game so clever is not even in its presentation, because I think it's beautiful. I think it's inspired by Chrono Trigger in a lot of ways, but I was saying that I feel like it's inspired by the Capcom series Breath of Fire aesthetically in a lot of ways too, right on down to like the hair colors and all of the rest, where I feel like that game was somewhat of an inspiration. That series has been kind of dormant for a long time, but I think there's some inspiration there. But on a systems level, I think that what they're doing is totally unique. As someone who has played many JRPGs and J inspired RPGs and turn-based RPGs over time, the level of system work and design I think is very deep. And there are little things in the game that I think matter, because there's a kinetic energy to the combat where you can't not do something. A classic thing in a JRPG, a turn-based JRPG, is to just not go, to just defend and give yourself time and withstand the next attack. Like there's nothing you can do like that in the game. You have to make a move, and it's like checkers, in that sense. Like you gotta go. Like it might not benefit you, but like you need to move. And I love the idea of breaking the enemies too. And it's kind of like a mini puzzle during the fights, where it's like, how can I, in 3 turns, how can I execute this level of things to do these kinds of damage so he doesn't use his big attack? And the death system is a similar thing. It's really clever where you can utilize it and almost lean into it in some sense, being like, should I heal this person or just let them kind of be a sponge for an attack? They die and then they'll come back in 2 turns anyway.
Right.
And another big thing I think that keeps the game going and keeps you making aggressive moves is there are no items. You can cook, and there are curative things in that sense, but they're limited, and there are just no items. So
Yeah.
like there's nothing you can do. And that means that you can't be poisoned or you can't be put to sleep or anything, which is a classic trope in JRPGs. But it also means that there's just no wasted turn. And
Yeah.
so I think that that's something I really tuned into with Sea of Stars and what I think makes it truly special. And
an underrated aspect too of just like, and I don't know, to be fair, I don't play a lot of these games. So maybe this is super common. I have no real point of reference for it, but something that I found really surprising in like a really nice way was I would see like a group of enemies, like specifically like early on, there's this type of enemy that kind of like throws like almost like a spinning kind of disc at you, or not like a disc, but like a sword that spins when you're traveling or like when you're like exploring or traversing, and you can genuinely like dodge it. Like you can avoid fights like by weaving around people. And I remember like early on the inclusion of like a random encounter being something that just sort of happened. It just sort of like there was really no way for you to see it coming, for you to avoid it. It was just like, okay, the game decided, okay, this is when this fight is happening now, in this moment, with no real indication, no real way to avoid or like kind of like weave your way out of it. And I love this. I think this is what I love most about this game. It's this weaving of, it's turn-based. It's still very much uncompromisingly a 2D kind of RPG, but there are these elements of like, you can weave in and out of enemies' attack patterns before you even engage in a real battle to avoid it if you want, if you're like savvy enough, or if you can actually manage to do it. Or, the timing aspect in the middle of combat, where it's like, instead of just waiting for an attack to happen, you're actively participating in the attack that you chose. Like, it's little elements of interactivity like that really go a long way to pulling me into a game like this, because I need that interactivity, or to know that I have more agency in this world than I otherwise would. And it's I don't know, man. I'm really liking the system so far. I'm pretty early on. Like, I don't know if there's any other. Oh, and also, like, what is it? The I forget what it's called, because I just kind of got it. But like the whole, when you hold the right trigger and like you absorb the
like
magic.
The like the orbs or whatever you can absorb.
I love that system.
Yeah,
I forget it too. But like that, I love that system too. Like the idea of like, okay, I'm gonna absorb. So I'm gonna so these are really strong enemies, and I'm gonna hit them with my normal attacks to build up all of this mana around me. And then I'm going to kind of like either stack them all on one character to do like a really huge attack, or I'm going to like disperse them evenly among my crowd so I can like get a nice increment of like damage. I don't know. There's so much interactivity in it. Like way more than I was expecting. I was really expecting like, okay, attack, then the game like rolls the dice and decides whether or not you hit it. And, I was expecting something more passive, I guess. And I'm delighted to know that it's a lot more active than I ever thought it really would be. And it's kind of cool, even hearing you guys talk about it. And I'm sure like watching, I've seen the trailers for it, and I remember remarking probably like when we first saw the trailers for it, like, oh yeah, it looks really nice. But I think in my head I was like, I knew that, I'm probably not going to play this, because it's just not something that historically appeals to me in the way that I wish it did. So a lot of this stuff is really new to me. Like I've not watched any trailers for it. I have no buildup of hype or anything. I listened to what you guys were saying about it, but it would always be like kind of like half, because I'm not playing it. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Right.
So I feel like I have this like really fresh kind of lens, or this fresh experience going into this. That's really, I'm sure it's definitely benefited it, but yeah, I'm really liking Sea of Stars. I don't know if I should keep playing on the Xbox though, because I kind of this is a game I kind of want to take with me.
Oh yeah.
So I'm thinking I might
get on PC.
I think I might. I don't know if I want to do it on the Switch or the Steam Deck yet, but
Switch, of course.
I feel like it's one of those where I want it on one of those.
Yeah,
it seems like a game that I would get a lot of. Yeah, like I feel like I would get a lot of value out of having that in a portable capacity. But yeah, Sea of Stars is awesome. Really into it, and looking forward to. I'm probably going to play it a lot today.
That's great.
But
Yeah, Sea of Stars is really good. And yeah, you spoke. I mean, we really just barely pierced the armor of the game. People should go listen to our full conversation on Sacred Symbols Plus to get further into it, but with spoilers and all of the rest. But I still have to get back. I don't know if I really will or not, but I'd like to. Like, I still left it on my cross media bar, but I can go back to it because there are some side quests I didn't do, and there's like an ultimate ending to get that I didn't get. But I'm pretty satisfied with it overall. I think there are some problems with it. I think my biggest problem with it is that it's very curated, which is not what I really go into for JRPGs. I don't mind linear JRPGs, but it's what you're saying. Like, enemies are just placed in certain places, which is fine, but the game monitors really very well where you're supposed to be in leveling so that you never feel under or overpowered. And there is no scaling. There's just no way for you to grind levels really in a reasonable way. And that's not really fun to me. That's one step away from just having level scaling, which is the worst thing in the world. So,
Right.
So that's kind of missing from it. I wish it was a little more dynamic. But one cool thing the game does is like a very scarce economy with money. And I love the cooking and the ingredients. The cute graphics when you cook, I think, are awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, glad you're enjoying it. As for me, actually, I wanted to read this before we move on. Joseph Jewell wrote in and said, "Greetings, Sacred Crew from a rainy England. Just wanted to share my displeasure and disillusionment with my recent experience with Sea of Stars. After 30 plus hours invested into the game and a thoroughly enjoyable time throughout, I have encountered a game-breaking bug during the build-up to the final boss, thus preventing me from the satisfaction of completing it. Although Sabotage have confirmed that they will look into a patch in the future to patch this in a future update, it has left an unsavory taste in my mouth. My question to you is if you have experienced anything similar in the past. All the best and looking forward to seeing you on our side of the pond in 2024. That sucks, dude. I'm sure they'll fix it. You'll just have to be patient. I haven't experienced something like this in a long time, but as I've said it before famously, because I think it's so funny, is that I had a catastrophic game-breaking bug in Fallout New Vegas that was totally fucked and messed my game up when I was writing the strategy guide, which was my last strategy guide ever. And the bug was that it just so happened there was a cowboy hat in the game, and if you wore this cowboy hat and then went to the strip and then it broke and there was no way to repair it, the strip would never load again and you couldn't proceed with the game. So that was like a straight up bug I encountered and I couldn't even believe it. And it fucking sucked. And I had I think I go back to like a much earlier save to before I found this hat, happened to put it on, happened to have broken it, happened to have not been able to repair it, needed to leave the strip, had no choice, and I knew the game was going to break or a game broke, and then I looked it up and knew that it was going to happen over and over again because of this. So that was the last time I had a really weird and annoying bug, but not since then. Thankfully, nothing has been game breaking for me. Immortals of Avium almost gave me a game breaking bug, but it was for completion of the platinum trophy, which is really just as bad. But there was like this thing that spawned. It was like a light puzzle, and you turned it on this axis, but for some reason it would load in like 90 degrees to the left so that you couldn't get the light where it needed to be. And thus you couldn't get this collectible. And I think I said on the show that I found a way. I was basically 95% being like, I think the game's fucked and I would have had a situation like this. And I found this random video showing you how to break the boundaries of the game pretty easily. And then you can come to the collectible from behind it to get it. And that's how I did it. So I broke the game in order to get the collectible, in order to get the platinum trophy. But
you broke the game to fix the broken part.
Right, exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, but I haven't had anything super catastrophic in a long time. That Fallout story, the New Vegas story, is always really memorable to me, though, because that was really a bad loss of time. Anything come to mind for you with this?
Yeah, there's a couple. Like I remember one really big one was Knights of the Old Republic when I tried to play that, and I think 2020, because that was a game I totally missed out on. And by the way, I was really liking it despite how old it was and how like janky it was. I was like, oh, there is something here genuinely that I think is actually pretty incredible despite its really primitive everything. But there was this, I think, this costume that you had to wear, or this uniform that you had to wear to sneak into this area. And it was like a way to get through or to sneak in. And then I snuck in, and then I died in like combat in that area. And then it loaded me back to the previous save. but the like the disguise was gone. And so I just couldn't get through into this area because you needed this item to progress.
Right.
And there was nothing I could do. And like, no matter how far back I went, I couldn't, it was just gone from the game. It was fucking crazy. But RPGs have those kinds of bugs a lot. It's just kind of like a cost of how deep the design is in those games and how free the player is to do whatever the hell they want.
There's nothing worse than that happening. Like it really, it's really not your fault. The game is in some way busted, and the presumption of games being busted sometimes when I get into situations. But it's funny, 99 out of 100 times I'm like, the game's fucking busted when I'm like stuck in a puzzle or whatever, and then it's like, I just didn't notice this. So usually it's me and not the game itself.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, I'm in a very Spider-Man world. I think I'm basically going to be in a Spider-Man world for the rest of the month. So
for the rest of your life,
potentially for the rest of my life, Spider-Man 2018. So Chris, on the conversation I did with Dagan, I spoke about this, is that I went back and looked into the annals or the annals of Sacred Symbols past, and the spoiler cast and review discussion for Spider-Man 2018 was the very first spinoff we ever did of the show. I think after the 10th episode of the show, the core show, and it was called something like Special Episode 1 or something, and we just did this brief discussion on the game.
So quaint.
It is. It's very quaint. Dagan and I went and did that conversation, like a new version of it, a different version of it, probably a little deeper, I would imagine, based on the length of our conversation. But I had gone back and played it for the first time since that era, and it's really, really great. I think Spider-Man, as I said on the show, and people can go listen to it on Patreon right now if they want, where Dagan and I get into the nitty gritty of it, is I think it's in the top echelon of PlayStation games, but like at the bottom of that echelon of PlayStation games. I think that it's there. But one of the things that I had noted over and over again in our conversation that I don't know why I don't know why I don't remember this about the game, or if I just didn't think this at the time, or if I did and I just am not remembering, is just how very literally Arkham Asylum a lot of it is. I think was either lost on me the first time or just, I don't know, but it's interesting to look at it through that lens, and it's fun. And again, when the game doesn't constrain Spider-Man is when it's most fun. And they just insist on putting these MJ things in there, and Miles and all of the rest, not Miles Morales, not in that game, but in this game where it's a little bit different, but that's fine. It's cool. It's fun. I highly recommend it. I platinumed it, so that's platinum 148. And then I went on to the Spider-Man DLC. And I hadn't played this, and I went and looked this up because I was like, these came out pretty fast in succession, and they really did. See, this is the perfect... It was
like a few weeks, right?
Right. It was like October 23rd was the first one in 2018. And I think the game came out in early September if I want. Yeah, September 7th. So like a month and a half, which is great. And then Turf Wars, the second one, came out a month after that, November 20. And then the third one, Silver Lining, came out December 21st. Now, I never bought those DLC packs. I remember being interested in them, but we just moved on at that time. And so the PS5 version has them bundled in, which is very convenient. And so I definitely knew I wanted to play them there. So yesterday, the Bruins had their home opener. Micah wanted to watch that on the TV downstairs. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go upstairs into our loft, which we really rarely use. We have a huge TV in there. But I sat there and I was like, I'm just going to play this DLC for a little while. And then I ended up just beating the first part of the DLC, 100%ing it in one sitting, which is pretty rare for me because I'm easily distracted. So that was the heist. And I really like it a lot. I do think that, and Dagan, so I should note, Dagan and I are going to do a second episode of the Spider-Man stuff about all the DLC. So that'll be on Sacred Symbols Plus. Then we're going to do Miles Morales. So we're going to talk about that as well. Again, although Chris and I did that not too long ago. That was back in 2020. But I really liked it. I think that there were a few things that stood out to me, though. It's very adult tinged, the subject matter and the way they talk to each other. It's very sexual. There's a lot of innuendo in it, to the point where I'm like, is this the whole point of it, is to be just a sexual innuendo after sexual innuendo after sexual innuendo?
This is Black Cat,
yeah,
right?
For the way Black Cat. And also, I don't want to ruin any of the story, but there's like a specific plot point where I'm like, Jesus, that's pretty, like, I knew that it probably wasn't what it sounded like from the very beginning when you first hear this plot point, but I was like, oh, that's kind of strange for Spider-Man You know, like, what do we? So I don't know how I feel about the tone of it, but I do like the character Black Cat a lot. I think she's really great, and
Yeah.
I love. There's a specific side quest structure in this first DLC pack where you're doing something for a cop you just met. And I won't say any more than that, but you're going around doing stuff for him. And it's really, really cool. There's like a lot of awesome exposition and a big reveal at the end of that, which I think is fun. But so it took like 3.5 hours, I want to say, to 100% it completely. And so I think I'd like to sit. I will be sitting with Turf Wars, probably not tonight because there's football on tonight, but tomorrow, and then Silver Lining sometime this weekend, moving into Miles Morales, and then being totally prepared. But I really, really liked it. And I'm glad to have played it. I don't play very much DLC, mostly because, as we talk about all the time, it just doesn't come in a timely fashion, and I usually just don't go back to those games. So it's good to play it. And so shout out to the Spider-Man DLC, which is included if you have Spider-Man PS5, which I think a lot of you already do. Let's see here. Two things. David Colin Copeland wrote in and said, "Dear Holy Trio, you guys did a lot of talk about Spider-Man's length on the last podcast, but failed to bring up any discussion on Spider-Man's girth. Would you consider Spider-Man's girth more or less or equally important to length? Thanks for all you do. Amen." Fair enough. I'd like to think that he's too nimble to have something so girthy, in my opinion. Right?
Yeah, it's not it's not like a tree trunk or nothing.
Right.
But I gotta. This is so distressing to me for some reason. Like, this is like this conversation, for whatever reason, is like triggering like a fight or flight response. Like, what is Spider-Man's girth in relation to his length?
What's Spider-Man's dick look like?
It's like an Arizona can. I don't know, man. I try my best not to think of it. You know, it's kind of difficult because he always wears that skin tight suit. But they do a good job. Did you see that? Do you know what Spider-Man Lotus is, by the way? Do you know that fan movie?
No, I'll look it up.
It's not very good, but like there was a whole controversy about like the people joked about it being him being like the racist Spider-Man because like a bunch of stuff leaked about like him just like using the N-word or whatever. So like it's just like, this is racist Peter Parker, and there's all these memes about it. But the costume in that movie like just has like the most outrageous dick print I've ever seen. Like on Spider-Man, it just looks absurd. And there's really not a lot of good images of it because the movie's not very good, and so people didn't really bother capturing it. But like, I watched one clip of it. I was like, that is so absurd that they put that in. Like, I'm sure that's probably how it would look, I guess. But also, like, why? Why did you go through the trouble of doing this?
Yeah, this is like a 2-hour film.
Yeah, it's not. Don't watch it. It's very bad. Nobody, and that's. I know you're not going to watch it, but I mean, from an audience perspective, like, don't. It's bad. Not just because he's like a racist Spider-Man. That's like completely irrelevant. In fact, that would be hilarious. It would be a lot funnier if he was the racist. He was the most racist Spider-Man ever, and the movie was great. But like, that's not what you have here.
Final Spider-Man related inquiry before we move on. This is just about the next game, and I don't know anything about the new game, and I assume you don't either. So this is an earnest question. He says, "Hey, Sacred Crew," or Dominic wrote in and said, "Hey, Sacred Crew, what are odds that Wolverine makes an appearance in Spider-Man 2? I never even thought about it. Is that a thing that could happen? I guess it could.
I feel like I don't know. I feel one of two ways about it, where I feel like that could be really cool, and that would be like a really dope way to tease something in a way that's really kind of classic. Like, it reminds me of when what is it? Was it Sly Cooper that had the trailer?
Yeah, Sly Cooper. The end of the Sly Cooper trilogy had a trailer for the Sly Cooper 4. Yeah. Like,
that could be like really cool. That could be like a very interesting way to do that. At the same time, I kind of hope part of me really hopes that Wolverine is so tonally different and so much of a different experience than Spider-Man that there would be no real way for them to interact in any way that would make sense. You know what I mean? Like, where I'm wanting something very different out of Wolverine. Like, I want it to be very dark. I want it to be very mature. I want it to be bloody because it kind of had. I don't know how you're gonna. I really have no clue how you're supposed to make a Wolverine game without leaning into like the prototype aspect of it, where it's going to be very bloody. It would be disappointing for me to find out that it's just kind of, here's more Marvel, with no real stylistic difference between this and Spider-Man. Like, that would be kind of a letdown for me. But it would also be cool. So I don't know. I think part of me wishes this doesn't happen. I'm leaning on the side of I want Wolverine to be its own thing.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll learn more about Wolverine soon, man. It's quiet.
been a minute.
Sure is quiet around these parts.
Wolverine.
Weapon X.
Little Wolverine, 5'3". Not much of a Wolverine. Maybe a little cub. Maybe a puppy. That's okay.
That's okay. All right, let's move on to the news. We often cut, by the way, at that time to bank everything. Our Zencaster, which is a pretty good service that we use, becomes less and less reliable the longer and more bloated our insanely long podcast gets. So we just stop. We just now stopping in the middle and starting.
Yeah.
To ease the tension a little bit.
It's good. It's good for a natural pee break.
Definitely. And I always need a natural pee break.
Before, I don't know about you, but like before, when we would record like for 4 hours straight, I would simply soil my pants. I would simply piss all over the ground because I was just so committed to the show.
Right. Right. We gotta get you Depends.
Yeah.
When we go to the BJ's Price Club here, I have a very old man dad joke I always say to Michael when we walk by that. I'm like, you need your, and I try to say it somewhat loud. Like, you need your adult underwear.
Oh,
as we walk by the huge displays of them. If you need adult underwear, that's the place to get them. Yeah.
Where?
About it. BJ's, like Costco or Sam's Club.
I thought so there's a BJ's like steakhouse.
Around. Oh yeah. No, not
like,
not yeah, no, not that BJ's.
Oh
no.
Man. Okay. Yeah. Good.
It's like
makes a lot more sense.
Costco.
No, yeah, I know what it is. I just like the first one that comes to mind is the one that's super close, which is definitely not some place you want to get any underwear from.
Yeah, totally not. Well, maybe, we find some in the garbage in the bathroom or something.
Oh, jeez.
On that note, number 1. Not surprisingly, the rumors are true. A new PlayStation 5 model is hitting the market in short order, with a smaller form factor and a surprisingly stubborn price. As revealed via official PlayStation marketing channels, the new PS5, which we'll colloquially call PS5 Slim from here on out, will be the new sole-based model of the console moving forward. Therefore, once all currently manufactured PS5s are gone, whether with or without a disc drive, they're gone forever. PS5 Slim is set to launch sometime in November in the United States and will ultimately penetrate all of Sony's markets, within the 2024 calendar year. With a 30% reduced volume and an 18% or 24% reduction in weight, depending on which old PS5 model you're talking about, it's important to note that the new model provides a fresh baseline on which a separate disk drive can be mounted. It sounds like certain SKUs will come with the drive and others won't, and if you change your mind later, the drive can be purchased separately for $80 or your local equivalent. And it behooves you to make that choice early, as if you buy the PS5 with the disk drive included, you pay $500, while buying it without it costs $450. So you'd pay an extra $30 if you change your mind. And yes, that price increase means there will no longer be a baseline digital option for PS5 priced at $400, which it has been since launch. New iterations of consoles typically come with a noted price cut, but not here. We can almost certainly blame the global economic situation and inflation for this, particularly because Sony is often dealing with poor conversion rates as a Japanese company, but still it's not a great look. And while the new PS5 does come toting an upgrade that may justify a minor price increase, the internal SSD will now be a terabyte in size instead of merely 750 gigs. The new PS5 Slim requires a stand if you want to use it vertically, one that will cost a separate $30, bringing us right back to the PlayStation 2 era. Thankfully, a horizontal stand is included. As this new PS5 form factor will require different separate outer plates from the ones currently available, Sony also notes that new plates for PS5 Slim will roll out in 2024. Naturally, the DualSense controller remains the same. PlayStation 5 launched in the fall of 2020 is a commercial hit for Sony and is the fastest selling PlayStation console in history to date. We should get updated console numbers in the coming weeks that will undoubtedly bring lifetime sales to nearly 50 million. And Sony is aggressively attempting to sell 25 million consoles within its fiscal year, which ends March 31st of 2024. All right, so the new PS5 Slim confirmed. We have it. It's here. I do want to say something about this new stand thing. First of all, it is gratuitous. It's ridiculous. But it's not unprecedented. That really nice PS2 stand that's often shown in all of the PS2 glamour images was a separate purchase. Yeah, that was a separate purchase too.
I never had it.
I didn't either. And that's the thing I think is I wonder, I didn't really stand my PS2 up, but you could, and it would stay without you really having to do much to it. I would keep it on its belly though. But I wonder if this thing needs the stand or if it's just a security measure either way, it kind of sucks that you have to pay so much for it. It just seems like nickel and dimey, but you really shouldn't. I don't like the whole vertical stand thing anyway. I just like lay it down like a box. Be a big boy. Be a big boy.
I don't know. I had my PS2 vertically sometimes, but there are certain consoles I think it works well with. I think the PS3 I feel like needs to be flat. The PS3 is a flat little boy. All right, see, you got to lay that guy down. But I feel like the 360 looked kind of nice vertically. The PS2, I could take it or leave it both ways. The PS5's issue though, like, because I remember being like, when I first got the PS5, I remember being like, do I need to put this stand on? Like, do I need to do this? Like, couldn't I just like do a PS2 and just sort of like have it there? And something about it felt like no. You know what I mean? It feels too tall. Feels too heavy. It feels like it's got that weird kind of like bevel. And I'm just like, ooh, I don't trust this thing to stand properly. So I guess I'll put the stand in. So from that perspective, it does kind of suck because I just don't feel like it's a machine that is designed to stand vertically reliably on its own. But the PS2, I feel like is. PS2 is completely flat.
Yeah, agreed.
So I don't know. It does seem a little shitty that they're charging for the stand. But it's, again, it is. You are correct that it's not unprecedented, especially in the world of PlayStation. So
right, yeah, that's what I just wanted to say that I don't think it's a good thing. I just don't think it's like it's not unheard of, and Sony seemed a lot friendlier in some ways during the PS2 era. The PlayStation 2 is actually, as I've said before, my least favorite PlayStation console, but the best aesthetic of a PlayStation console by far.
Yeah,
I think it's like it's so cool, the original PS2.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Beautiful little machine.
Beautiful.
Especially something about that green and blue light.
Yeah, I love it.
Looked so damn cool. I don't know what it was.
Very futuristic. I remember the silhouette of it in my room, like the fall of 2000, being like, "This is like the future. This is like these lights." Yeah,
that's so funny. Yeah, because the PS1 and the N64. Well, I think did the N64 have a light?
It had a red light on it. Yeah.
Yeah, the PS1 had like that little green, that little one on the power button. But yeah, something about it, man. It was nice.
Yeah, there was like a red like LED. It wasn't even an LED, whatever it was, some lo-fi. I don't even know the terminology on the like the NES. The SNES had a small red dot in the front, I think, and then the N64
NES
had like an oval, I think. All right, Brian Young wrote in, said, "Hello, Sacred Crew. What do you think Sony's thought process was with the recently announced PS5 Slim, specifically the digital version? They've increased the price by $50, which would seem logical with the bigger SSD and the ports they've had to add to the optical disk drive. But why would they charge the additional $80 for the disk drive itself? That brings the price up to $529.98. Anyone who would potentially buy the disk drive in the future would be better off just purchasing the disk version for $499.99. Make it make sense. Thanks for all the amazing content and keep fucking that chicken." Thank you, Brian, for writing in. I mean, you answered your own question. They want you to buy the more expensive one.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then they're going to penalize you and make a little bit more money off of you. This isn't a huge surprise to me either, the price differential of paying a little bit more for it a la carte. That makes a lot of sense. That's the way a lot of things work. I think the bigger thing is that, and something that I think we need to focus on here, Chris, is this idea that new iterations of consoles come with a price cut. I'm pretty sure, and someone out there can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure this is the first new iteration of a console that costs the same or more, right? Like when the new Xbox, the only thing I was thinking about was the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
When the black Xbox 360 came out, they dropped the price at that point, right?
I think so. So there was the Xbox 360, and then there was the Xbox 360 Elite, which was the black one,
right?
That came out, I think, after 2008, I think. And that one, I think, I feel like that one had a price increase, but I think it had a bigger hard drive or something. I feel like the Elite was more expensive, but I could be.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Okay, so there's that example that would be.
I don't know. I could
be
wrong though. Somebody will write in correcting us, but I feel like this has happened before.
It seems. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other consoles like the Dogbone controller NES was incredibly cheap. I think it was like $50 or something like that when it came out. The SNES, the second SNES was cheap. The second Genesis might have been the same price. N64 never got a redesign. Dreamcast never got a redesign.
Yeah, so
PS1 got a price drop. PS2 got a price drop. PS3 got a price drop.
okay,
PS4
so
got a price drop.
so I'm seeing the Xbox 360 launched at $400, and the Xbox 360 Elite, I believe, launched. How much did the Xbox 360 Elite? $479.99.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was but it was also like that was like HDMI, because like the original 360
Right.
didn't have HDMI. It had like those weird like
And
HD
integrated Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and integrated. Well, I don't think the Elite had integrated Wi-Fi. I think the 2010 model, that sleek one. I wish I had that one, man. But I already had one, so there's no point. But
Go get one on eBay.
That was a nice looking. That was just a nice looking machine. Oh well.
All right, my friend. Well, what do we think? I mean, how are we feeling about this new console? What do we think it looks like? What do we think about the form factor, the price? I mean, what do you just talk to me generally? I think I'm a little concerned about the price just based on what it tells us about PlayStation's ability to extract value out of what they're doing right now. It seems a little nickel and dimey, but they want to push a lot of these units. There's a lot of profit to be made there by doing that. I don't know. I just don't know that is the price still precluding people from buying the PlayStation 5 even at $500 or $400, whatever it was, or are you just not buying it at this point because you just don't want one? I mean, it's hard for me to tell.
I don't know. To me, I feel like this is another one of those things where, I mean, the original PS5 had this problem too, where I don't really have a sense, even in the images that they've shown of it, how much smaller it actually is. Like, I'm sure that I could visualize it in some way, but it doesn't feel like, to me, this machine just doesn't really interest me. I got to be real. Like, I think based on what I know about how the PS4 Slim went for me, where it was fine, but it was just, at least that was like a smaller, like a significantly smaller form factor at the very least, like way smaller. So like I could see the value in that, but the PS5 is, as it stands, like, for me, in my use case, is already kind of hidden away anyway, in a way that doesn't really bother me. And if this thing, I feel like I'd rather wait for like the Pro model whenever that comes out and spend my money there, as opposed to something that's a little bit smaller but still gargantuan and has this modularity that I just don't really need. It doesn't speak to me, but I'm sure there are going to be people who get value, especially out of the hard drive. That's like a nice boost.
Yeah, it's a nice little boost for sure.
It's a nice boost, but
it's good for a Call of Duty patch.
Yeah, it's good for one map.
Yeah, Call of Duty map.
Yeah. Oh my god, it really feels that way, man. Those games are so big for no reason.
Yeah, they are. Right. They are, and they're just getting bigger apparently. I was even surprised by Spider-Man 2 size. I think it's almost 100 gigs. Guess we're kind of getting there.
What? Really?
Yeah, I think I saw it at 82 something or whatever, 82 and a half, something like that.
Wow.
Could be wrong about that, but I think so.
Damn.
Yeah. And because the preload begins imminently, I think the day that this goes live, the preloading will begin.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So for me, I think that this is about Sony minimizing costs on the production end. They have to do it. Redesigns often happen to reignite market interest, but also to just cut costs. And it's clear that the aggression in selling old units we were right on in observing like they're trying to just get rid of these consoles. A lot of people were being like, well, maybe they're having trouble selling them by offering a free game and something. Like, dude, they just want to get rid of the old consoles. They don't want any more of these consoles, so that when the holiday season comes around, you have just this one option. And they're probably manufacturing them for significantly cheaper. They're going to make a nice little rip on the disk drive. Maybe some of you fools will buy that vertical stand and do that as well. But I think that this is just a necessary step as they get PlayStation 5 under control, more affordable. And I think that the economic realities, unfortunately, around us just preclude them probably from making a meaningful price drop when you consider not only inflation generally, but really the poor conversion rates that Sony, like I said in the write-up, often experiences. So especially right now, we just learned from Dustin, for instance, how poor the Japanese yen is doing. And when he was there, and it's like so much worse than when I had been there. So like your money goes further there. So it's just like, it's more complicated when you're dealing with these international entities, but I would have expected a baseline $400 console. I mean, that was kind of my expectation. Just knock it down to 400.
Yeah.
and that they weren't able to really achieve that per se is a bummer.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Especially
matter to me. I
because-
own 3 PS5s. I mean, I have enough PS5s now to last me for the rest of the generation that I've purchased. But
Yeah.
for people that want another one or a new one or haven't bought one yet or whatever, one for a different room, I just don't think it's that attractive.
Yeah. It doesn't speak to me. If it was a Pro model, it would be a different story, obviously. But it's just not. So wait for that.
Yeah, totally. And again, $450 for the base unit, $500 for the base unit that will come with the detachable drive included, $530 if cumulatively, if you make the decision to buy the 450 unit and then buy the drive separately, you're going to pay a surplus. So or a premium, I should say. So just be careful about that. And otherwise, hope it brings more people into the family. Buy a PS5, get a PS5. I really enjoy mine. Don't think Sony has an incredible amount to do with that this generation compared to me enjoying other games, but we'll hopefully be getting there sooner rather than later. I don't really know. Anything else to be said about this? I don't think so.
No.
It makes the way for PS5 Pro, which so we got to give a shout out to Tom Anderson, who had been calling this for a long time pretty accurately and has called in similar reporting the PS5 Pro coming 2024, fall 2024. So I believe that, and I'm going to be far up that thing's asshole, but I'll tell you that much. Like I want that thing. So
yeah, I'm a lot more interested. I hope I do hope it looks different. I don't know. Maybe it's just like a very old school kind of mentality, but I miss when, because this does look different. I guess there is like there's a difference in the design a little bit to make room for the detachable disk drive, and the disk drive looks extra pregnant in this version in comparison to the old one.
It bulges. Yeah,
it's
totally.
It's like it's 9 months now. it's finna burst, as the kids are saying. But I think it would be nice to see like a wildly different form factor. Just selfishly, I just like when things look different. It's just nice.
Honestly, the new one looks like a "Don't look at me and my son," or "Don't talk to me and my son," rather, ever again image.
Yeah,
right? Like you would just put like the big one and then like the little one in front of it. And I was like, because I look at the downstairs in our living room, we have the PS5, the Switch, and the Xbox Series X set up, and I look at the Xbox Series X. I'm like, this is such an elegant looking, simple machine. Why does the PS5 have to look like this? This is so much better. This looks so much better, like infinitely better, and it harkens back to the PS2 design philosophy. The PS1, which is behind you in your shot too, is a beautiful thing that's really of that era, where you wouldn't really get away with something quite so gamey. I don't think anymore. And put in your living room.
The top loader,
right? Super cool. But
I love it.
But the PS2 is so beautiful. The PS3 is a hideous machine. The Slim is a lot better, but the PS4 was nice, and the PS4 Pro, I really like how they just stacked it, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a nice looking, even though it was deeply confusing to me where the hell the buttons were for a while. I actually still to this day don't think I ever fully got used to I was just like, I'll use the controller. I'm not touching this thing ever. But I don't know, man. I disagree with the PS3 being hit. I like the PS3. I think it looks interesting. It looks cool.
It was heavy. It was so heavy.
It was. Yeah, you could bludgeon a dragon with that thing. That was like the original Xbox was the same thing, where it's like you could drop this on a city and the city would be gone.
Dude, I think I said the story in here in the past that when I was a sophomore in college, I lived in Willis Hall at Northeastern, and they were putting up a new building next to us, which ended up being West Village H, which I lived in when I was a senior. And they were doing like the fucking drilling and the pile driving and all that kind of stuff. And I had this shelf above my bed with just consoles and games, and I had my Xbox up there, and it was slowly shaking. And I woke up and looked up, and it was like hanging half off the shelf from all the thing, and I'm like, damn, dude, that could have been the end.
Final Destination.
It's not like a GameCube falling on you. Like that would have been the end of my life.
Yeah, dude, you almost got Final Destination. I love that. You ever see those images of the dominoes, where like the little domino like reaches to the big domino,
exactly.
and it's like Bill Gates creates Microsoft, and then the big one is Colin Moriarty dies.
Right, exactly. Colin Moriarty gets crushed by Xbox in his dorm room bed. All right. Number 2, I'm very curious to see what you think of this. Because I don't think I have an objective point of view on this, to be honest. Number 2, not that this should come as the biggest surprise, but it appears The Last of Us Part 2 is getting a remastered port on PlayStation 5. You may recall that this rumor first started percolating months ago when renowned composer Gustavo Santaolalla, I think that's how you say it, noted that a so-called enhanced version of the game was in the works, to which he was contributing new musical content. He clammed up soon thereafter, but as he has been the composer for everything The Last of Us related, the original game, Left Behind, the sequel, and the HBO show, it's likely he'd know what he's talking about. But thanks to the Eagle Eyes, a website Video Games Chronicle, we now have even more evidence, this time from a LinkedIn profile from Naughty Dog's lead outsource artist, a guy named Mark Pajario?
I have no idea how to pronounce it. That is wild.
In his since edited CV, it's written in part that since joining the team in early 2021, he's been, quote, responsible for overseeing the production of all outsourced environment, art assets, weapons, and interactive props for 2 iconic titles, The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, end quote. So the cat is basically out of the bag, and as VGC itself reports, its own sources indicate the project may be closer to release than we think. So now the question remains, is this something people want? The answer is obviously yes, though for many hardcore players it seems quick. But is it? The original The Last of Us came to PS3 in 2013 and received a remastered PS4 port in 2014, the very next year. Indeed, Naughty Dog noted during that time that porting the original from PS3 to PS4 helped them to learn the new hardware, and perhaps a similar reasoning is being employed here. But it's almost certainly something else. That The Last of Us is now an acclaimed HBO show, that the original game remains beloved, that the sequel is likewise beloved, and that there's a whole new audience of PlayStation 5 waiting to play it, not to mention millions who will buy it and play it again. Having come to PS4 in 2020, The Last of Us Part 2 is the last time we've gotten a new project from Naughty Dog, though they did release the aforementioned Part 1 on PS5 just last year. Currently working on multiple projects simultaneously, it's widely assumed Naughty Dog is making a third core The Last of Us game alongside a new IP with the Imperiled Faction spinoff somewhere in limbo. I said Part 1 on PS5. Yeah, it was last year. That's right. Okay. So what do you think of this? I'm not, this is not a remake. It sounds like there's nothing to remake. And so I'm not really that offended by this, but I also realize that I have no objectivity on The Last of Us just in how much I love it. I would be absolutely fucking thrilled to play The Last of Us Part 2 again on PS5 with all of the bells and whistles that would come along with that. So I'm down with that. But I understand that some people look at that as an opportunity cost. I just think that there is an imperative to do this for them, considering the HBO show, this was probably predates certainly the HBO show, but there's just a financial imperative to squeeze some more millions of copies and I guess dummies like me will go and buy it. I'll buy that thing second one. So I don't hate it.
I don't have a problem with this really at all necessarily. It's just funny. it's more just an amusing thing to me that there are so many remasters and re-release of this game that only has two entries in the series. I think I just think that from a Wikipedia article list format just looks really funny. I understand why you would want to do that. The PS4 was obviously pushed to the absolute maximum with that game, or at least like it felt that way. So, I mean, playing that game with modern resolution, modern frame rate, that alone in and of itself, I think is fine enough to justify, putting it on the new hardware. I think I don't really see a problem with that necessarily. It's just amusing that there's so many freaking remasters and remakes, and this is exactly what I joked about, I think, but I don't find it offensive. This is kind of what I expect, especially like you said, because this is now like a deeply flagship enterprise, more so than it used to be because of the show. It does make me wonder I wonder if they're going to use factions to push this in some way, or like if they're going to try to find some synergy with that, because they're clearly not going to wait for. They're not going to wait for like the second season of the HBO show, because that's ways away. So you have to figure they want it. They spent a lot of money making factions. It didn't reach Bungie's high watermark for live service, whatever that meant as far as like stickability goes, or stickiness, whatever they want to say. But maybe this is a way for them to get it out in a way that doesn't necessarily put a lot of pressure on it. I don't know. I'm spitballing, but that would be an interesting way around it, or at least to justify both the remake, or not remake, but like, the port and seeing factions out in the wild after spending so much time on it.
Yeah, I like where your head's at. I was thinking that too. Is there a way to stitch these things together and bring them together as a cogent product, basically kind of completing the circle since they were split up from each other?
Yeah.
During development, just put them back together. And that seems like that would be an ambitious move in terms of we already have a 30-hour game or a 25 to 30-hour game. And then you have what would have been a standalone multiplayer experience, but it would be kind of wild. And I think that would defray all of the blowback they would get from bringing The Last of Us Part 2 to PS5. I just think that there's the one thing that's missing here that is worth noting is that bringing The Last of Us to PS4 made a little bit more sense because you couldn't play it on PS4. There was just no way to play The Last of Us on PS4. That is not the problem this time, but I would also argue that the PS4 port of The Last of Us, I think, was not even a year after the PS3 version. Mm-hmm. And this will have come out probably closer to 4 years, if not more, from when the original came out. So I think people are being a little hard on this for no reason. I do understand the consternation around what's going on with Naughty Dog, and we just need some answers and some clarity. And I would love to know as much as everyone else knows too about, or that everyone else would like to know too, rather, about all the different strategies they're employing and all the rest. We just don't know. And it is frustrating, but we have to just kind of be patient. And I understand it. Just thank God for the third parties. There's just an ample amount of, we didn't need anything from any of the first parties this year to have, including Nintendo, I think, which probably has the overwhelming game of the year game. But like, you didn't need anything from any of them that make this one of the best games or years of all time, and games for the vast majority of gamers in the core audience. And so it's kind of a good time for Sony to be silent, if there is a good time for Sony to be silent, because they're not really needed right now. But I think that hopefully they realize that they're going to be needed sooner rather than later, and they need to start getting some fucking games out. So yeah,
it would be nice to just have a little bit more transparency as far as that goes. But I mean, like you said, I guess we don't necessarily need it right now. But man, Naughty Dog, I'm still honestly reeling from all this factions stuff. It's been on my mind constantly. I'm like, what the hell is going to happen to this thing?
I'm very curious too. Like I said last week, Chris, I refuse to believe that they would just box this game and just not ship it. That's just it
feels impossible.
Maybe we're really overestimating the amount of money they invested in this thing, which is possible, but it doesn't sound like it. I mean, if this thing was in development alongside The Last of Us Part 2 and then split off, I mean, we're talking about, I would assume, $100 million plus investment, unless they were just really doing this on a budget, in which case I'm not really interested in it or as interested in it. But I just don't think that they would do that. I think that obviously that was going to probably reuse a lot of assets and do all sorts of things. And I don't know. It's confusing why they're being so quiet, because I think that they feel like people are going to be harder on them if they're just honest about what's going on. But I don't know that that's true. You give people's imaginations room to run wild, and they do. And then they lose sight of the reality that, and I'll just reiterate that, we don't really need them right now. Yeah. Like, we needed them a few times in the past, definitely, to come through. But even with Spider-Man and Starfield and all this, like, no, you don't need any of that stuff to even just have gotten through this year totally fine. Next year might be a different story, though.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Number 3, if you happen to be a PlayStation Plus Premium member, the highest of the 3 tiers in the newly restructured PS Plus scheme.
You mean Deluxe?
Deluxe, that's right. Which people wrote in, I think it has something to do with New Zealand or Australia or something. Yeah, that's about as far as I got into caring about that.
Those Kiwis.
You're about to get an all-new perk, cloud streaming for PlayStation 5 games. While not the biggest deal in the world, you can already stream some PS4 games, and the only way you can play PS3 games at all on newer hardware is via streaming. That current-gen games are now joining the fray is nonetheless notable. According to official PlayStation marketing channels, select games within PlayStation Plus's premium catalog, as well as some game trials that are only available at that tier, will be streamable, including Spider-Man Miles Morales, Horizon Forbidden West, Ghost of Tsushima, Mortal Kombat 11, and others. Game trials for titles like Hogwarts Legacy, The Callisto Protocol, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and more will be streamable. And if you happen to own games like Resident Evil 4 Remake, Dead Island 2, and others, you will be able to stream them without having to play them natively. Now, some notes. If a game has DLC, its add-ons will likewise be streamable. Resolution outputs range from 4K and 1440p to 1080p and 720p, with up to 60 frames and SDR or HDR output. And finally, all audio enhancements, including 5.1, 7.1, and Tempest 3D, are supported while streaming. PS5 streaming will roll out in Japan first, with Europe targeting a release of October 23rd and North America joining the fun on October 30th. Is this relevant to you? Are you interested in this PS5 streaming for the first time?
You know, I a year ago I would have said no. Even a couple months ago, I feel like I would have been a little bit more passive on this. Been like, whatever, big deal, cool. I mean, it's good for the people who want it, but I'm not really going to use it. But dude, I have to say, streaming tech is surprisingly good now. And maybe I was a little bit too quick to like poo-poo it, because I've been most of my Cyberpunk, Phantom Liberty, and most of my Starfield playtime, and at least recently in the last like 3 weeks, has been on the Steam Deck, just streaming it from my PC. And it is sincerely kind of shocking how completely absent the latency is entirely. Like I don't feel it at all. I'm getting like the maximum, like all PC settings, like these high like ultra textures on this handheld. And I'm like so mesmerized by it, to the point where it's like, yeah, dude, like I think now that I've had like extensive experience with it, and now it's actually been like one of the primary ways that I play stuff, I could see this being like a huge deal. And it actually really did, like using the Steam Deck in this way really kind of changed my perspective on Project what's it called? What they named it officially, right? It's not Q-Lite.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let me look. I don't remember. Oh, PlayStation Portal. It's PlayStation Portal.
Oh, Portal. Right. Portal. Jesus.
I was thinking Leonardo for some reason, but that's the other thing.
That's the controller.
Yeah.
Man, it's changed my perspective on that, to the point where it's like, I think I might be interested in that. And I could see that being like a big deal for a lot of people. And so, yeah, this is dope, especially if it lets you stream games that you own already without having to download them. That's a huge deal. Obviously, it all depends on how good the streaming tech is, because obviously, like not all streaming is created equal. There are some, you could have something that's as bad as on live. Who the hell knows? I doubt it. But that discrepancy does exist. I remember Stadia was kind of having that issue for me when I tried it out the first time. Just wasn't really there. But it's gotten a lot better, at least on the Steam Deck front. So if they're offering it, I assume they have a product that's or a service that's pretty good. Some of these games are really cool. I wish it was a little bit more uniform. Like I just wish just generally there was I wish you could simply, like, if you owned a game, you could stream it and it wasn't kind of case by case. But I get that that's probably like a bit of a pie in the sky idea, at least for right now. But yeah, this is dope. This is great.
Yeah, it seems like this has inevitably been happening. I still don't see the use case for me for cloud gaming or streaming at all, with the exception of, I guess, being forced into doing it if I wanted to play a PS3 game on PS4 or PS5, which is a different story. And I wouldn't want to do that anyway, so I'll just play it on my PS3.
Yeah, I will say those are still not great. Whenever I've tried to stream, like, for whatever reason, streaming Cyberpunk from my PC onto a Steam Deck works perfectly fine, but streaming like Resistance from PS3 on PS5 is just, I don't know why. It's rough out there. And I think it might be a mix of the fact that they're old looking games mixed with the fact that there's like a lot of missing detail in the latency as far as texture quality goes. So it's a really inconsistent type of bad as far as how it looks. So that might just dampen the experience. But yeah, I did not really see the use case either until I was just sort of put in a situation where, like, I've had my parents here, so I've been I gave them my bed because I can sleep anywhere. I could sleep in this office, in the living room, whatever. It's not a big deal. And so late at night, I'm kind of up super late anyway, and I'm like, I want to play, and I want to play loudly, but I don't want to wear headphones necessarily. I don't want to have the TV blaring, so I'll just be in bed playing the Steam Deck. And I was like, I could stream. I gave it a shot and it was awesome. So like, I think there is a use case for this. I do think it's one of those things where it's like, it very highly depends. It's probably the only real use case for it, in my opinion, is if you would just want to play games in bed. That's been my use case. In which case I think this is super cool, especially if you've not played any of these games before and you're just like, I don't know. It's been really nice, especially because games are like naturally soothing to me in some way. Like I'll naturally like play them and then I'll just sort of like fall into this deep sleep in a way that's kind of interesting. I think I might have just been lulled into that sense of security for a very, very long time by video games, just playing them until I passed out. But there's something to it.
I'm the same way reading Wikipedia on my phone at night.
Wikipedia specifically?
Yeah, I love reading Wikipedia at night. All right. Final news item number 4. Finally, speaking of PlayStation Plus Premium, new games coming to both PS Plus Premium and Extra have been revealed. To remind you, the Extra tier is the middle tier of PS Plus, while Premium is the highest tier. A majority of PS Plus subscribers remain at the lowest tier, Essential, and these games aren't for that level. First, let's go through the games coming to Extra's game library. The biggest offering of the bunch this month may be WB Montreal's 2022 Batman-aligned game Gotham Knights, available for PS5. Meanwhile, on both PS4 and PS5, players can look forward to mega-popular 2019 RPG Disco Elysium in its final cut form, released on PlayStation consoles in 2021. The third game in Supermassive's Dark Pictures Anthology, 2021's House of Ashes, the 2022 adventure game Far Changing Tides, and others. On PS4 only, players will also gain access to the likes of Creative Assembly's 2014 horror game Alien Isolation, the 2016 so-called definitive edition of 2011's Dead Island, 2017 horror game Outlast 2, Frontier Development's 2017 port of the popular 2014 game Elite Dangerous, and others. Finally, over on PlayStation Premium, the highest tier, comes 4 older games. It's unclear if these will also be available a la carte for non-members, which is usually the case, but not always. Bandai Namco and its internal team Project Soul offer up the 2009 PSP fighting game Soul Calibur Broken Destiny, while the publisher also provides the 2009 PSP port of its popular 2007 arcade fighter Tekken 6. Meanwhile, the poorly received 2005 PSP game Ape Escaped Academy joins the catalog, as does obscure PS1 game IQ Final, the 1999 follow-up to the popular Sony-owned 1997 puzzle game Intelligent Cube. This is notable as IQ Final was never released in North America, though it did see launches in both Japan and Europe, so there's a little piece of interest there, I guess, but not a great month, I think, overall. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's like any of these months where if you've never played any of these, I guess that's pretty good. Like Alien Isolation, I think, is really good, and Outlast 2, I think I remember liking.
I didn't play the sequel. I only played the first one, which I really liked a lot.
Yeah, the first one's great. I don't think the second one's as good as the first one, but the second one's still pretty good. Disco Elysium is the one that I'm so intimidated by. I started it and I played it for like 10 minutes and I was like, this is really interesting, but also I'm scared. I'm scared of it. Honestly, the most value that I see here is just out of just sheer curiosity for Gotham Knights. I am genuinely curious about it to the point where like I think I might at least give it a go. Not really with any intent to see it through because there's just so much I'm playing right now. If I ever really get a chance to play through this, I'll probably wait a while. But I do want to see like what is up with this game. I want to get like just to know for sure what is going on. Like, is it as bad as people say it is? Is it as disappointing as it looks in my opinion? I don't know. But now there's no barrier to entry now. But as far as like these classic games go, man, outside of IQ Final, which I guess is like an interesting piece of history, they're dropping the ball on this, in my opinion.
Yeah, they have to increase. It's just strange. Like they need to do better. What's with all the PSP ports? That's cool.
What's with all the weird PSP ports?
Yeah.
Specifically, like what the hell? Where's Wipeout? Where's Wipeout? Please, someone at Sony, please help me.
They don't want anyone to remember Studio Liverpool.
Yeah, it's a shame.
All right. Well, those are the PS Plus Extra and Premium games if you partake. Gotham Knights is an interesting inclusion. I already own it. I bought it when it was on sale like a while ago. I don't know if I'll ever play it either. I kind of bought it in anticipation, like certainly you'll make this 60 frames a second, right?
Oh, that optimism.
All right, my friends. Let's get into the news here. Or I'm sorry, let's get into, what am I saying? Let's get into we already did the news. We're not back. Oh my God, where it's like, fuck, it's like Groundhog Day. It's like, oh no.
Oh man.
There's more news to get through, even though we're at the end of the news. No, it's time for listener inquiries. I'm sorry. 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience over on patreon.com/laststandmedia. We put up a thread in the news feed each and every week, soliciting your inquiries. You respond. I go through them. I select what I can, intersperse them throughout the show. This is 6 of them that we end with. Let's start with Marxist Summers. Interesting name. Says, hello, gents. Not sure if you have seen the rumors surrounding Bob Iger's lieutenants and Disney board members pressuring him to aggressively push into gaming with an EA acquisition. Obviously, we would prefer EA remain intact, but Apple has been mentioned as a potential suitor in the past. Either company would be better homes than Tencent or another nefarious entity. What are your thoughts about a potential Disney and EA deal? Would EA be sentenced to life without parole working on Marvel and Star Wars spin-off games, or would he get Princess Jasmine being brutally killed in Apex by horrific anthropomorphized Jiminy Cricket? Like we all know Chris wants. Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Marks Summers, thanks for writing in. So I was seeing this story circulate, and maybe I'm mistaken, but the source of the story is a Bloomberg article.
Mm-hmm.
I will put it here into the chat in case you haven't seen it. It's called Has Bob Iger Lost the Magic by a writer named Thomas Buckley. And this is a long and interesting read. Not as long as the read about Bob Iger that I suggested, I think, from Variety about a month ago that I was talking about on the show, but an interesting and lengthy read nonetheless. However, when I read this story, I'm kind of confused where this news cycle is coming from. Gaming is mentioned only in the article a single time, and it's in a paragraph deep in the article. And here's this entire paragraph. Okay, it says, quote, a couple of offers have been floated for Disney's TV assets. Byron Allen texted Iger a $10 billion bid for ABC and its other TV channels, while Nexstar Media Group Inc. was in exploratory talks for the news network, but neither deal is likely to go through. ESPN agreed to a sports betting deal with down-market casino operator Penn Entertainment Inc. that will pay Disney as much as $1.5 billion over a decade. For years, Iger insisted Disney couldn't get into gambling because of reputational concerns. Now it seems like one way to plug holes. Iger's deputies are pushing him to consider a bolder transformation of Disney from gaming licensee to gaming giant through, say, an acquisition of Electronic Arts. But as with everything else, he's been non-committal. That's the extent of the entire mention. And really, it's 2 sentences of that.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what this article is saying. It says, quote, again, Iger's deputies are pushing him to consider a bolder transformation of Disney from gaming licensee to gaming giant through, say, an acquisition of Electronic Arts. But as is with everything else, he's been non-committal, end quote. This just seems kind of like a nothing story to me. I don't think it indicates that Disney's going to buy EA or that it's a possibility. But yeah. I when I saw this circulating, I really wanted to know where it came from. And that just doesn't seem sufficient for us to give too much credence to this yet. Maybe there's something to be talked about in the future, but I don't know, man. The way that that's written is it's not even clear that it's coming from the sources and not the writer, actually, in reading it. So I'm not even entirely sure.
It's almost like he's giving an example of what that might look like.
Right, exactly. You know? So I just think it's kind of not a story worth considering too much. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm not really that worried about. I mean, well, first of all, in the reality that this is real, that would be upsetting to me, just because we talk a lot on the show about consolidation and how we're not big fans of this trend that is happening. We know it's obvious that it is the trend and it is how things are going to go, and it's in some ways inevitable, and that's unfortunate. But I would still like to hold out for as long as we can, and it would be a shame to see EA just sort of relegated to a Disney machine. That would be very distressing to me. But yeah, I just don't think there's anything really here to get panicked about or start jumping to conclusions about. Like, it doesn't even say that they're even looking. What is it? The story is that people close to Bob Iger have been pushing him to try getting into the gaming industry a little bit more than they have been, and Bob Iger's not been receptive. So I don't. Like, I don't see what the story is really here.
Yeah, it's a throwaway line that's so deep in the story, respectfully, that Thomas Buckley, the author, didn't see it as a lead, right? So it's I don't know. I think this is in the realm of possibility. I think Apple and Amazon making purchases are in the realm of possibility too. One thing I wanted to say was this constant pushing of Tencent as this entity that will be able to buy a company like Electronic Arts unmolested is, I think, a fantasy. I'm not saying that they couldn't or wouldn't do it, but
I hate that word.
Yeah, I'll think of a different word next time.
No, you're good. It's fine.
A synonym for it, but of which there are many. I could have said instead of the word unmolested. Yeah. Sorry to say it again, but I think that people are vastly underestimating the the pushback that an acquisition like that would have in just general American commerce. And I'll remind people that when Chinese companies like Huawei tried to come over here and do business here, they just were not allowed to do business here at all. I'll remind people also that Tencent has basically had to rebrand as another brand entirely in the West, in Level Infinite, a publishing arm, in order to kind of gain distance from that name. So I don't look at Tencent as a realistic. Tencent, I don't think can be that aggressive. And I don't think that people are necessarily going to accept that they would think about the Live Golf PGA merger, right? Which is worth a few $1 billion and got Congress up in arms. This would be worth many times that and be the Chinese, so I just don't see it.
I think the concern is that golf is something that like the dinosaurs in Congress understand, as opposed to this, which is like a very complicated industry that even people who are like really, really well read and entrenched in it kind of get lost in the sauce sometimes. So to me, it's like it seems plausible to me that Tencent could make a push in such a way that people at the highest levels of government probably wouldn't even notice, because it's tapping in an industry that they themselves don't know anything about. That's really the main concern. It's not necessarily that they wouldn't, that it typically wouldn't be allowed or that it wouldn't be fought back against. It's that whether they would even understand that it is what it is, if that makes sense. Because we just don't have, it's crazy. It's like, was the median age in Congress is like 70,000 years old or something.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy how old these fucking people are. They're literally dying just of old age in the Congress.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love that. Was it? Do you remember when that was? It the TikTok? Was it the TikTok CEO or something? Was under questioning, and the guy was asked that congressperson or that I can't remember who the hell it was. I don't think it was a congressperson. It was some guy in the government. He was like, so if it connects to my Wi-Fi, can it download my Wi-Fi? Or something. Like it was like some absurd shit. Like I was like, you're like, what are you talking? What does that mean? That doesn't make sense what you're saying.
It's embarrassing that we have this what do they call it? A gerontocracy?
The octogenarian
situation going on here. But I will say I'd much rather EA stay independent than any of these things. And I would much 100%. Rather, and if they were going to be purchased, I'd much rather them be purchased by Apple or Disney than Microsoft.
Yeah.
At least,
at this point, for sure. Yeah. At this point, especially, like Microsoft's bought enough. They don't need another publisher.
No, they certainly don't. Ben Scott wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC. I was recently playing Control in anticipation of Alan Wake 2, and the right trigger on my DualSense was suddenly really loose. It still worked, but had some serious jiggle to it. Oh, I took to YouTube and found out that a small spring holds the tension at the top of the end of the trigger's travel, and my spring broke. Luckily, it could be replaced easily and inexpensively. I found a $10 repair kit on Amazon that came with everything needed to repair the controller. When it arrived, I followed a video and successfully completed the repair by prying the controller apart, taking out 4 tiny screws, replacing the spring, and putting it back together. It works just like new. I had never repaired anything like this, being admittedly intimidated, but this was pretty simple. Have any of you ever exercised your right to repair with a game console or peripheral? If so, how did it go? Do you have any experience with this? First of all, nice work, Ben. I don't think I'm sure that if I sat down and did it, I could do it, but I just don't consider myself sophisticated enough to even consider that. It's just like, oh, it's time for a new controller.
Yeah, I used to do it a lot more when I was younger. Like when I was, I think 14, 15, I would do a lot more of that because my controllers would wear out. The joystick would come loose, or like there would be a button. Specifically, the thing that would happen a lot was that there would be a sticky button. A button would start to stick, and I'm like, "Damn, this sucks." And so I would open it, and I would clean it, and I would put it back together, and it would work. I went through a couple of attempts because sometimes I would just put it back together, and then just nothing would work, and then I would be like, "Oh shit, I didn't connect this thing back. Whoops!" And so I would do it again, and I eventually got the hang of it, and I got pretty good at it, but then. I just got into, I became self-sufficient and I just made my own money. And then like whenever something would break, I'd be like, I could fix this, but this is just the world telling me I need to buy a new controller. And so I would go buy new controllers at that point. Like I haven't done this in a while. I used to open up when my 360 kind of shat the bed and died for good. I took that upon myself to kind of open it and try to mod it and do a bunch of weird stuff to it. But I wasn't sophisticated enough to get stuff like that working. Like that was just beyond my ability at that time. Honestly, I probably just don't think I really cared enough to do it. I just kind of wanted to take something apart just to do it because there is something satisfying about that. But I haven't done that in a long time.
Mega Man 2, I had a cartridge, an NES cartridge that had like a piece of sand in it. You know, I don't know if people out there, I certainly know what I'm talking about. Like there would be this thing where sometimes the NES cartridge would get something inside of it, and like somehow through one of the little gaps in it. And so it's just a few screws and all this stuff. And I took it apart and got the thing out of it, but couldn't get the case back together. And so I was in like middle school when I did this. So I didn't duct tape, but I scotch taped the cassette together. And it worked because the pins just sit, on top of each other to work on an old NES. So that was about as far as I'm just really, really bad. For instance, I put my flagpole, like just a little flag stand outside, and I thought I was doing it right. And then I was like, yeah, this is perfect. It's nice and straight. And then I went and looked at it. And it was just like totally crooked. It doesn't really matter because it's holding a flag and you can't really tell anyway, but I'm just not, or I was Micah had me putting up helping her put up a coat rack under the wall, and I like screwed it all fucked up and messed up. I'm like, just don't. I don't know why. I'm like, I have the yips, I think, in some way where I think I'm intimidating myself and my own abilities, but I just don't want to open anything up and deal with anything. It's just too much for me to worry about. But I do one thing I will say is that I really appreciate that legislatures around the world are really legislating to have right to repair kind of instituted more into our electronics so that we're not held beholden to these really arcane rules and these pop-up windows you get on Apple when you use a third-party device and all this stuff. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Stop making it seem like this is going to break my phone for using this because I didn't buy it from you, or that I can't go to a screen replacer and then it breaks my Apple Care plan and all of the rest. It's cool that people are fighting back against that. I think that's great. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
because not everyone's me. Like a lot of people are fully happy and willing to do what they got to do. I'm not one of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always been pretty like relatively handy. Like I like building. Like for some reason, I really like building furniture. Actually, like just putting stuff together and like building stuff. Like I wish I had a space to do that. But
you should go on. If you like doing that kind of shit, you should go on TaskRabbit and go do that for people. And I know a couple people that have done that and made a ton of money. You become like a specialist of putting together like certain things and.
Maybe
it speaks to people, and they make quite a bit of money doing it.
Yeah,
not that you. I'm not saying you need to do that, but just as a.
I would probably just do it for free, just to do it. It's like those people who like get. Like I thought about doing this actually kind of recently. Like in the last I think after the fight, I was like, I think I want to get like a job at McDonald's. Just to do it,
That'd be interesting. It would be interesting to do that and like chronicle it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It was a flash in the pan kind of thought, and then I immediately was like, "Do I want to do that? No, probably not." But
you should go work at the McDonald's on like Ocean and Colorado.
Oh my god, no way, no way! I hate that place.
That place is haunted. God. I hate that place.
I can't say that's the place where that person like demanded me that demanded I give them my fries, and I just crushed them all in front of her. I was like, no.
That place is fucking. I can't even imagine what the scene is there now. It was bad when I lived there.
I was actually there like super recently, like because I took my parents to Venice, and then I took them to Santa Monica just to see the pier and stuff. Took them to Joe's Pizza.
Oh, nice. And, that's still there. I'm glad that survived.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that place is constantly bustling. But yeah, I passed by the McDonald's, and I just thought about all those times when I would finish recording this show, and I'd be like, oh man, I have so much time to kill before traffic gets reasonable enough for me to go home. So I would just wander the streets. And I would end up inevitably at this McDonald's, and I would always see some nonsense happen. It'd always be something. That place is crazy, man.
Yeah, I used to go there. There's like I don't know if it's still there anymore, but there was like an ArcLight cinema right over there. And so I used to go to that McDonald's. I had this like few month period. I was telling Mike about this, that I had this few month period in like 2018 or 2019 where I was going to go see a movie every week, just to force myself to go see it. And I did it like 8 or 9 times. I just saw random movies, and I would go to that McDonald's and just buy a few cheeseburgers and put them in my pockets of my Northeastern hockey jacket, and then go into the theater and then eat them.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty
Your
disgusting.
Pockets aligned with cheese.
Yeah.
Oh man. That reminds me of my cousin who used to put tinfoil. He used to put tinfoil in his pockets and just go to like barbecues and stuff and just like line his pockets with barbecue, like all the food, and then just leave.
It's good stuff. I mean,
it's insane.
When
It
I
works.
was, not that this would be very uncommon, but you're not supposed to do it. But I in college, I was just totally flagrant about going to the dining hall with Tupperware and just getting shit ton of food and being like, because you could swipe in like once a day or whatever, you had to pay for it all. So I'd like go eat a meal and then I would just get a bunch of shit and like put it all into these Tupperwares in like the corner and then just put it in my bag and just bounce. Same as
awesome.
fuck them.
Yeah,
Just
right.
ripping me off. All right. Matt Matlock wrote in, said, "What's up, Sacred Crew? This one's for Colin. If PlayStation were to add trophy support to their PC ports, would you do playthroughs on your PC to earn another platinum for some of your more beloved games? If you were to play them on PC, would you play them on your desktop or grab a Steam Deck for some Vita-like action? I shall hang up now." I'm a little surprised that there isn't trophy functionality on their games yet, although I think that would probably require a separate launcher, right? Because there is an Xbox PC launcher, and then Xbox games are also on Steam, right?
Yeah.
And the
yeah,
Xbox PC games have achievements.
Yes, they do. So how it works, I don't have a ton of experience with a ton of them because I typically only play games on, I don't play many on both places. You know what I mean? It's really just Halo Infinite that I play on PC and on Xbox, specifically on Steam and on Xbox Live. So I don't know how other games work, but how it works with Steam is you have Steam achievements and those achievements correlate to Xbox achievements. So the next time you log into Xbox, those achievements unlock in the same.
Oh, is that the? Oh, interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, with the same. I think you can choose to not do that. You can choose to opt out of that. I'm pretty sure. I just didn't bother because like I don't. It's just not something that I care about that much. But yeah, because I remember when the Master Chief Collection came to PC and I launched it for the first time, I unlocked all of these achievements from the Xbox version that I had played for many, many years prior. So I think there's some synergy there. It would be nice to see that though, because like clearly they're able to do that with Xbox games. So I don't know why they wouldn't necessarily have that functionality with trophy support on like Horizon, for example, or any of the other games that are currently on Steam. That'd be a good thing because I think how it works is you sign in with your Xbox account and then it links or it does like a cloud sync where it links all of your progress and then it'll do it. So like I don't see why Horizon can't do something similar or other PlayStation games can't do something similar where it's like, okay, you sign in with your PlayStation user account, but it's still Steam and your progress is shared or whatever. That would be interesting for them to look into. That'd be great.
It kind of scratches this interest I've had where, and we've brought this up on the show in the past, where imagine one of the big companies, so Microsoft or Microsoft or Sony, saying like, we've made a module where you can connect your PSN name to an Xbox Live name and we'll scrape the Xbox Live for any achievements that have trophy equivalents and just give them to you.
Right.
To like kind of coerce you to come over or whatever. So you don't feel like you're so far behind. I feel like that would be an interesting move. Maybe not very meaningful. I mean, because to me, Matt, in terms of your write-in, PC trophies would be one thing, but I actually think that the functionality of trophies with their mobile games is going to be pretty important. And I would like to think that they know that. It's the same thing with PlayStation Stars. Like PlayStation Stars is a really cool idea. People write in about it pretty often, actually, but there's not much to say because it's kind of boring. You have to go into the app. You have to do all these tasks. It's not integrated into the PlayStation Network in an appropriate way yet. Once they integrate it onto your PS5, I think it's going to be something much more worth talking about. So I don't know. I'm much more interested in the mobile functionality and getting all those things tied together. And so when there is a mobile game out from one of these studios, I hope it does have trophies. That would be nice.
Yeah. I got to say though, man, like that does seem something that might, like if they could figure out how to do that, if they could be like, okay, this is a PlayStation game on PC, it's got a separate trophy or whatever, or it's got a separate thing, kind of how you're going to Miles Morales and playing it on PS4 to unlock those trophies, even though you've done it already. If they had like a way for you to play something on a Steam Deck on PC, basically from your Steam account, and then unlock trophies on a console quality game on a portable handheld. Would that speak to you in some way?
Yeah, it would, but I just don't think I'm not that interested in replaying those games. It would be cool to know that there's this tertiary option down the line where it's like, I want to play Horizon again. I want to play Spider-Man again. I've already played them on PS4 and PS5. Now I have another way to earn some achievement. Like that's like a little too much even for me to stomach feeling that way. So, but as far as I'm not with PlayStation just for PlayStation games. it happens to be an ecosystem that attracts a lot of games that I like from other publishers and developers as well. So that's not going to be sufficient for me. I think I do wonder if they can get something going like you described with Xbox achievements, though, to kind of create that synchronicity between them. I think would be dope. But
yeah, that would be nice.
It doesn't speak to me really. I also feel like, and maybe I'm wrong about this, because in fact, a lot of the greatest achievement guides on the internet come from Steam, for Steam achievements specifically, that just work on other platforms. So, but it doesn't seem like Steam achievements matter to anyone.
No.
Like compared to, and obviously the group that care about Xbox achievements is probably, I think, the biggest per capita of player base. And then trophies, I think, would be underneath that. It just seems like Steam is even worse than that. You know who would have the biggest group of people clamoring for their shit? Yes, that's exactly right.
Nintendo, easily. Yeah.
They don't even get it. They just
don't even care, man.
It's weird because they should care, because those are the motherfuckers that you would grind through.
Yeah.
Like lumber through a fucking wood chipper, dude. You would go through these dudes.
Yeah, they'd go swimming in the elephant's foot for Nintendo. It's crazy. I guess they're trouncing the competition though. So I guess they're just like, why should we care? Why should we even implement this? It's just complicated.
Yeah, they probably do look at it. I think they also look at it as saying like, it doesn't matter to us. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's not why you play games. It's not why you play our games, which I appreciate them holding the line. But every time they release a new platform, so it began with 3DS really was the first platform that came out where I was like, I bet you that might have an achievement system on it. And then, because the Wii couldn't do anything. And then 3DS came out, and then Wii U. So when Wii U came, I was like, that's definitely got to have an achievement system on it, right? And then they didn't. And then the Switch came, and I was like, absolutely. I mean, obviously, the Switch is going to have an achievement system. And that was 6 years ago. So
yeah,
I just, I don't know at this point what to expect.
Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to bother with it.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either, just because they've come so far now.
Yeah.
And in the end, it didn't even matter.
Oh, man.
Kingsley wrote into us, said, "Hey, Sacred Boys, while not PlayStation related, Sony Pictures Mobile Games Division title Fate Grand Order has surpassed $7 billion in revenue since 2015, making it the 7th highest grossing mobile game of all time. It is over 20 spots ahead of COD Mobile and 2 spots ahead of Genshin Impact. Do you think the lack of news around this is because the word PlayStation isn't attached to it? This is probably the 5th time I have written about this huge success of the game over the last 2 years. I hope you read this one. This clearly means Lan Sengul, who, and I think I'm saying that right, who is the developer, knows what they are doing. Should they lead the way with PlayStation's journey into mobile?" So I saw you write in about this, Kingsley. You're right. I guess it's you that's brought this up in the past. So I finally was like, you know what? I'm going to go research this on your behalf. Although you probably know way more about it than I do already. And you're just writing in about it to inquire what we think. So here's what I've discovered about this game is that this is a mobile game that came out in Japan and in the West way back in 2015 in Japan, 2017 in the West. And it is really popular. It says here on the Wikipedia page, as of July 2021, the game grossed $5.4 billion worldwide, making it the 7th highest grossing mobile game of all time. Total revenues reached $7 billion by September 2023. So this is what you said.
Crazy.
And you're right. So the publisher of the game is Aniplex, and Aniplex is an entity that is owned by Sony Music. And I don't really know. I tried to look into it a little bit, like why and how was it that this game was developed with them and not with someone else? And how did PlayStation not get their hands on it? And my thought here, I didn't find too much definitive information about it, but there are a lot of like anime and manga spin-off stuff and this kind of greater environment. And my assumption is that Sony is happy as a corporation to just let these guys explore this multimedia endeavor that is not just this mobile game, and that mobile gaming, when this game came out in 2015, was anathema to PlayStation. You didn't, in fact, having that game under PlayStation at that time, people would have been like, whoa,
yeah,
what the fuck is this? And so I think they wisely siloed it off. And now that we've fast forwarded all of this time, Chris, I think that you look at it and you say like, yeah, why isn't that with PlayStation? But it's like, this is kind of the reality of that specific game, but they probably look at it. I mean, this should indicate to people more than ever that Sony Corp understands.
Right.
Like they get it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's actually super wise to keep it kind of siloed off in the way that they did. Because that definitely would have been like what the fuck is this?
Indeed. So that's like kind of what I learned about Fate Grand Order, but I don't know very much more about it. And my assumption is, again, just based on the kind of cross-media, multimedia potential of it, and the fact that you didn't want to necessarily infect PlayStation with this game means that you keep it apart. But there's probably much deeper information out there if you guys are interested in it. I don't want to give too much of my time to a mobile game that I don't care about very much. But I did want to acknowledge your letter, since you have written in about this in the past, and you are right, it is huge. But I think that probably answers the question. But again, informs Sony's initiatives moving forward about what they want to do with mobile, as PlayStation is a huge part of the company.
Yeah.
The biggest part of the company. Barrett Boswell wrote in, said, "Howdy, gentlemen. I'm enjoying playing through RE4 DLC with the Resident Evil series' iconic infinite rocket launcher. While we may not use these types of game-breaking bug bonus items as much in today's games, do you have a personal favorite game-breaking weapon from games past? Maybe Mr. Toots from Red Faction Armageddon. How about Dead Space's finger gun? Appreciate all you do, honorable gents." It's funny, I like this question. What comes to mind for you with like the game-breaking gun?
Instantly, the thing that comes to mind is the Scarab gun from Halo 2, which was like this thing that you had to like glitch into it. It was that beam that the Scarab would shoot, but it was like connected. And it's so funny because like it's the way that they had to design their games, where it's like they couldn't make this weapon real unless they made a weapon that the player could hold that worked this way, but they didn't want to give the player that weapon because it would be too game breaking. So they hid it at the top of like a bridge, like somewhere really, really far away. And you could like glitch a Banshee into the next level after a loading screen and fly to it and use it. And it destroyed fucking everything. Like it made the whole game trivial to the point where it's like you were clearly not ever supposed to find this thing. But that was a power fantasy, man. Just immediately, like, boop, and then everything's gone. It's so cool. And there's probably a bunch of other ones, but that's the one that comes to mind immediately. I'm sure if I mull over in my brain a little bit, like I could probably think of some other ones, but that's the big one.
Barrett's right that this is not it doesn't seem like a big thing anymore, but we just play games differently. Like that's the kind of stuff that's fun in local multiplayer specifically, and doing that kind of stuff. So it makes sense that would be kind of excised from the way we look at games. A couple I were thinking about, although it's not really game breaking, is I think about BFG and Doom, right? And so there's that. And then a specific thought I had was Fallout 3 had a game called the Alien Blaster, or a gun called the Alien Blaster. Did you ever discover this or know this? So this is a little bit of a spoiler for people for Fallout 3, but it came out in 2008. The DLC that I'm about to discuss came out in 2009, but in Mothership Zeta, which was one of the DLC packs where you're like abducted by aliens, there's like an alien crash, I think, in the wasteland, and you find the remnants of this crash landed craft, and you can find a body, like an alien body, and then you find a gun on it, and it's called the Alien Blaster, I think, and it comes with this very unique ammo that's only useful for this weapon. And it's actually pretty plentiful. As I remember, the DLC makes it especially plentiful, but you can still run out of it eventually. But it is a mega powered, like vaporize anything gun in the game. Basically breaks it. You can even kill like death claws and things like that with one hit in it. And that always stood out to me. I really liked that because it came out, or at least was discovered. Maybe it was on the map and was tied to Mothership Zeta later. I don't really remember, but it was kind of obscure enough and then late enough that it didn't break the game fundamentally, like where you would just make a beeline to this weapon to try to make the game as easy as you could early on. And people don't really want to cheat themselves out of that experience anyway in a game like Fallout. So having something like that late to allow you to kind of just bounce around, I thought was really fun. And I just love Fallout 3. I think that game is just truly special, and was like a really special game to me, and opened my mind to video games in a new. And I mean, at that time, it's so funny. By that point, Chris, I was playing games for like over 20 years. And I was like still mind blown and like, wow, this opened my mind to a whole nother way.
It's so funny because I remember playing Fallout 3 the first time, and I hated it the first time I tried it. Like I remember just feeling like, because the beginning of Fallout 3 is kind of slow, and you're like in school, and you're taking tests and shit. I just remember being like, what is this? I didn't appreciate it until way, way later, but I don't know, man. There is something about that retro future 1950s wasteland, like holy trinity of elements that just creates like an amazing vibe.
Yeah, it's strange. It's strange because the future, they live in the year 2077, or at least that's the year that the attack on the United States happens in Fallout War.
But it's like stuck in the 50s.
Right. It's very cool. Like it's very weird. It reminds me a lot of just playing with timelines, very much like the Order 1886 did, where they were decades ahead of the technological timeline in the game. where there were blimps and airships and electricity really running and all these things. And it was just cool. It just made sense, even though it actually didn't.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's even just like BioShock, where, you know, that you can't make a city underground or underwater. That's not, it's not possible. But the fact that it is possible in this version of like 1950, whatever, and that you're walking around in it and it looks of the time and there's like all this Art Deco. That's something that I wish, I don't know, maybe it's not rare in games necessarily. Maybe that's like a bit of an overstatement, but just that striking design philosophy is kind of, I feel, a little bit absent from games now in comparison to what they used to be. I feel like we used to get a lot of interesting takes on certain like architecture and just vibes, because Fallout's amazing in that regard. Like I don't particularly love the story of Fallout 3, but I like the experience of moving through it.
Yeah, the story
like,
is whatever,
very deeply.
You know?
Yeah.
But like the DLC was way cooler when you go to other places like Pittsburgh and Maryland. And I really people often talk about like, what's a game that you wanted to like? And I'm like, I really wanted to like Fallout 4, like so badly. I was so excited about it. I was like, yes.
Yeah. I liked it. I didn't love it though. I
tried. Like I got to the same position in 2 playthroughs, like 20 or 25 hours in, where I'm like, I'm not really having fun for some reason. I don't know why this doesn't feel the same to me anymore. It's just that time and place. So Barrett, thank you. Great question. Be well. The Lizard King wrote in, final inquiry, says, hello CDC. Have you guys got any interest in Robocop Rogue City? It seems to have been previewing pretty well, and it looks like a straightforward, old school feeling AA title at a AA price point too. Colin, after your interest in Crime Boss, I figured this game may be of interest to you more so. Seems to be much better with that 80s feel. Thanks for the great show every week. So this game, Robocop Rogue City, I think, it comes out November 2nd. It's going to be on PS5 and other platforms too, so PC. And there's a Steam, I think, I don't know if it was on PS5 too, but there's a Steam demo up for it right now, and people are really, really digging it. It's from a studio called Teon, which is kind of like a shovelware studio until more recently, and they've put out a few licensed products over time. I think that they did a licensed product that like a Rambo licensed product probably 10 years ago, and things more recently as well. But they did that Terminator game a couple of years ago that people kind of liked too. So this is their next game, and it's an Unreal 5 game, and it looks kind of dope. And I kind of like Robocop. You know, the 1987 kind of post-apocalyptic feeling, dystopian, fucked up Detroit with this android cop going and busting heads. And so I think I'm going to check this game out, actually. Did you see anything about it? Has it been making the rounds in your circle?
Yeah, I have seen some gameplay of it that looks interesting to me. It does look like it scratches that AA itch. There's some funny things about it though, because like I've seen close-ups of the close-ups of Robocop's face look really funny because he's got some thick lips. Like he's got some real DSLs on him, man. Like it's like distracting how full his lips are. Like he looks like beautiful Squidward if you ever seen like I wish there was a way for me to let me send this. I'm gonna send this clip to you, right?
I love trying to find. Yeah,
it's like an hour. It's like an hour-long thing, but like if you go to 47:58 on this video, you'll see what I'm. You'll see what I'm saying. He's just got these like, I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just like weirdly fixated on it because it's the only human. 47:58. Yeah. It's like the only human feature you could see on him, so like maybe it just sticks out to me. But they look like it just looks really strangely like he looks like a beautiful man.
I'm just letting it play out. 47:50.
Oh yeah, my God. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'll make a timestamp here so they can put it in.
It's very bizarre. 47:58. It's
I mean, they're not like, they're just well defined. They're maybe even a little feminine.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like he's like, I'm having some thoughts.
He's like, you want to kiss?
Yeah, I'm having uncomfortable thoughts about this Robocop. But I have seen gameplay of it, and I don't know. It looks. I feel like it's not kinetic in the same way that I like my first person shooters, but I do feel like this is probably going to be something that's worth experiencing in some way. I feel like it's going to be one of these like small AA gems. Because I've seen gameplay of him just like picking people up and throwing them at other people, and that looks really fun. Picking up chairs and like breaking them over people's heads. It looks like unnecessarily gory, And there was this one glitch that I saw that actually kind of made me want to jump in even more, where he threw like a grenade, or I think he like blew up an explosive at the top of the stairs and blew some guy off the stairs, right? Blew some guy, whoa. And he lands, and so he goes onto the bottom to kill him, and then when he kills him, he warps to the top of the stairs to do this like predetermined animation of him falling down the stairs. And I was like, oh man, it still looks fun. It's just like jank, but I might check out. I didn't know that there was a demo though. I thought all this was like preview footage, so I didn't know that. So I might give that a shot today.
Yeah, that's on Steam. You can check that out now. Everyone else out there as well. Yeah, and I think I will look into that. I wanted to kind of check out that Terminator game. I just never really got around to it. It's supposed to be pretty good. Like, it's supposed to be pretty good. The Terminator, is it Terminator Resistance? Let me see. Taeon made it. I'll find it for you presently.
Oh, is it the same?
Terminator Resistance, 2019 on PS4, and then 2021 on PS5.
I didn't hear anything about it. It definitely didn't make the rounds in the same way this Robocop is.
Yeah, it definitely did not. And it doesn't have a great score. It has a 47 on PS4 and a 62 on PS5 on Metacritic. So
that's not great.
But who knows? All right, my friend. Well, that's it. That's all for this. We don't have to listen to Dustin yammering on. So we got done a little sooner than we usually do today.
Yeah, we have 1 hour less of simping for anime women.
Yeah.
On
Ohio.
The show, so.
Whatever he said, I don't want to even say it again. I don't want to speak.
Yeah, no, we gotta
his weeb language, but we miss him. He'll be back next week.
Yeah,
and in the meantime, we appreciate you. Have any closing comments today, Chris? It was a fun episode, an old school episode again.
Yeah, very old school. I think I don't know. It's the last full day with my parents, so we're probably gonna go find something to do. I think some friends of mine wanted to meet up before they left, so we're probably gonna do that later today. Play some Sea of Stars tonight. I don't know. It's cool. Going to be a chill week, but this weekend I got to start working. I have a deadline that I got to hammer out, but yeah, I don't know.
Cool. Well, it was good to see you. Good to talk to you, and good to be with all of you out there. Thank you for your love, kindness, and support of all things Last Stand, Sacred Symbols, etc. We couldn't do without you on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia, laststandmedia.store for merch. Yeah, as for me, I don't know what's going on this weekend. I'm trying to think. I'm just going to kind of be relaxing, I think. Some football and some hanging out. I mean, we're trying to get the little final pieces together for the wedding. And so it's like, it's imminent. It's because we got engaged. Like, I'm sorry.
Do you feel pressure at all?
No, I feel like I've said over and over again to people, it's like, it's just lingering. If someone would tap me on the shoulder right now and be like, you could literally get married right this second if you just went and took a shower and got dressed in your suit. And everyone will be there, and you don't have to put it off. Like, it's just right now. I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
I know exactly what you mean. It's just having something to do with like a very rigid schedule, even if it's like in the far future. It's like, oh man, that's a whole day of like serious.
And I think my only stress is that I have a lot of people coming in, including you and others, like, which I appreciate. Yeah. And I want to make sure I'm like getting FaceTime and like appreciating everyone being there. And it's like, because they say it's like the craziest day of your life, and like you just can't.
It's impossible.
Yeah, and I just feel bad about that because I'm not one to, and people that know me know this, like I'm not one to be like, come have a party with me. Like that I'm doing something like this is a pretty big deal, and like me putting myself out there, and people have really reciprocated in a major way, which is awesome. But I want to make sure people feel appreciated, because I'm not one of those guys that's like, let's get together. And I'm calling people together because it's something that's meaningful and important. But I just want to make sure that people know that I appreciate that, even if I don't get to see them very much, Yeah,
I think anybody who's been to a wedding kind of understands it. Like, dude, that you're not, it's about them, really. You're having a good time, and there's going to be enough people there. It's not going to be some crazy situation where you have to I have to get at least 20 minutes with everybody. It's like, it's not possible. It's just not happening.
Yeah, I've come to accept that. So that's that. Yeah. But otherwise I'm feeling good about it. And we have a good collection of people coming. Obviously, like a ton of family, and Mike aside too. But, Cog will be there, and Gene will be there, and Hogue will be there. Yeah. Dustin will be there, and Ben will be there. And it's going to be an interesting group of people. Plus friends from, Ramon will be there. My best friend from Long Island, my childhood best friend, Mike Pope, will be there. Dagan's best friend and like an older brother growing up, PJ, will be there. There's like a very interesting collection of people, you know, like a good, very funny group and very, very fun group of people. So I think it'll be good. So yeah, just trying to stay in the moment in the meantime, because there's just so much to do. I have to like stay focused, or otherwise I'll just suffer from paralysis. I'm able to compartmentalize usually the most horrifying parts of life, you know, like that terrify me. In some way.
That paralysis is real though.
Yeah, definitely.
Man.
If you let it seep in, you know, but I'm also trying to stay in the moment that it's like, this is like a good thing. It's like, I get nervous about events, but it's like, no, this is good.
Yeah.
Like enjoy it, lean into it a little bit. I'm like, okay. So I'm getting there. The closer it gets, the more I'm tuning that in. So anyway, let's get the hell out of here. Chris, thank you for your time. Appreciate you.
No problem.
Thank you all out there for your time. We'll see you next time for more. Until then, goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.